Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Final Boss on this Sunday, the 25th of August. My name is, apparently I don't even know what my name is right now because I won't load. My name is Adam K, aka Bay, and welcome again to everybody. Good morning if you're in the European scene, and good evening if you are on the other side of the world, but we bring that up. Tonight we have a couple guests on to talk about guild leadership and the Endgame metagame, and basically what it all goes into running some of the top guilds in the world, and what you can learn from these people. And joining us again, this week is not PAX, however, that is next week.
Yeah, next week.
Next week. Jenny, how are you tonight? Hello.
Hi. Hey everyone. I'm not at PAX right now, but next week you will see me at PAX. In the meantime, I think tonight's going to be a really great show.
I hope so, now that you're here. I actually was planning on doing this by myself, and then Jenny was like, showed up in the chat room and said, nope, I'm here tonight. So, yeah, I had to reposition things for the show, which is totally fine. But also joining us tonight here is going to be the name I slaughtered last week, Amiyeable from Promethean. Thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that last week. I don't know what came over me. The first time I saw your name, I was like, this looks like a hodgepodge of letters. So
Yeah, pretty much.
It's totally okay. And then, last but not least, reporting in from an undisclosed location in the Nevada desert, Riggnaros of Blood Legion. Thank you for being with us tonight, sir.
Hello.
Your dog is not behind you right now. Where is this? I thought you promised me dog.
He'll probably make his way in here shortly. He comes in and out of the room as he wants. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see plenty of him tonight. No big deal. Yeah. Well, okie dokie. Let me turn this down. Maybe. I think. Okay, goodness. Quiet, iTunes. Quiet. Alright. Good. Good.
Dude.
Oh no,
That's
don't
fine.
bring out the Rammus hat already. Oh man. I'll have to bring that up later in the show. But definitely. Welcome everybody. Mobs and Minions, hello tonight. We have a whole lot to talk about, and I will not let this dilly on too much more. Jenny, take it away. I'm
Alrighty.
gonna push buttons.
Well, every week we interview our bosses and ask what's been on their plate recently, and with the advent of the Siege of Orgrimmar coming up, I bet we're all pretty curious what are these top raids and raid leaders doing to prepare. So I'm going to start with you, Riggs. What is on your plate, or what has been on your plate recently? So how's PTR going for you?
I don't know. I mean, it's pretty much probably the same for all the top guilds. It's, do all the testing that you can, try to get everybody in the instance, and up front just kind of see how the fights work, get all the mechanics down, figure out like baseline strats, and then start getting everybody face time on the encounters. And then once you're, the 25-minute heroic testing is really when it starts. So, I mean, that's coming up now. I think they wrapped up all the other testing. So, I mean, it's more or less just been PTR, and then make sure that you keep up with the VP capping and the, full clear live raids each week multiple times and things like that. Make sure all the alts are ready to go for the week 1 normal clears.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you
Anything...
Oh, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if there's any recent events, and since we thought that the patch was going to launch earlier, has there been any major changes, or are you just kind of like, it's not a huge deal, it just gives us more time to prepare?
I think everybody was happy that the patch was delayed, because if it would have been this Tuesday, it would have felt pretty crammed, especially if they would have had to, shotgun the heroic testing to the point where, it was cramming it all in within the past few days. But I think that since it's been pushed back to the 10th, everybody's, getting all the other stuff out of their system, whether it's Hearthstone or Final Fantasy or Dota or League or any of that stuff. I mean, a lot of people have a misconception that, people just, in top guilds raid 24/7, but, I mean, we'll get into that more later. But, yeah, I mean, everybody also enjoys playing other games and things like that. So, I was up until way too late. I was probably up until 8 a.m. playing Hearthstone this morning, so it was pretty fun. We'll probably play some more again tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people
Very nice.
that have access right now are going to be talking about that. I totally understand where you're coming from. Then Amy, then how about you?
So on our end, it's pretty much been very similar. Just try to get everybody as much face time as we can on the bosses. And one of the things that I've been doing personally is we run a lot of our own raid add-ons. So I've been in the instance like alone, just trying to collect map data and trying to figure out how the strats are going to work as far as the raid add-ons go. And then, it's been pretty much just like evaluating, what classes do we want to bring, things like that. And then on the live side, it's just been like your normal farm activities, and everybody's pretty happy that the patch got pushed back, because last time was pretty miserable. The heroic testing was like over 3 days, I think. So we definitely weren't looking forward to doing any at this time. So hopefully they extend the heroic testing over a couple of days like they did with the 10-man, but we'll see.
You said you use your own raid add-ons. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Do you have your own stuff you build, or?
Yeah, so we'll get into that a bit later. But
Yeah.
The description of this add-on is basically hand-holding since 2013. So basically, it really does a lot of the stuff in our raids, and I'll show some screenshots and kind of get you more familiar with it later on when we talk about raid organization.
Sure.
But yeah, it's something that we build in Guild, and it's kind of like built on top of Bigwigs, and really provides a lot of the kind of raid organization structure that we use.
Very cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I know that these people usually people have moderators that are in their guilds that put together like their own custom timers and stuff like that based on your polls. And I know with weak auras now too, a lot of people make their own custom weak auras to help guilds out. But yeah, all right, I gotcha. So outside of the game right now, what's been going on with you guys lately? I know Jen's going to be at PAX next weekend, but do you guys have anything? I mean, you go into PAX or anything coming up lately? I know we had the Method crew was at Gamescom this past couple of days, which was super cool. But what about you guys lately? Anything going on in the real world that is of note?
Go ahead, man.
Oh, on my end, I've been doing the most exciting thing ever, which is like getting mortgage stuff squared away. So it's been painful, but it sucks.
Oh, well, everyone's got to pay the mortgage. That's like a long, yeah.
Well, this is like
Did
getting
you
a
just
mortgage,
move into
so-
a new house, or?
Oh, that could be it. Yeah, there we go.
No, I'm getting a new house, so
Oh.
trying to get all that stuff squared away, and
How exciting!
yeah.
It's a big move. Have you been in an apartment before then, or you go house first time?
No, a house, but
Okay.
moving to another house, so.
Yeah, I actually just got a house recently after I got out of college. So I've been in colleges ever since I was 18, but I was always in apartments for the last 10 years. So I got a house, and I was like, oh, what is this? So yeah, I understand. That's awesome.
Yep.
And Riggs, you were going to go?
Oh yeah, nothing much too exciting going on outside of gaming. Like I was talking about the Hearthstone beta, that's always taking up a lot of time. I know the Method guys were actually supposed to be playing them in a Dota game. I know I saw Leeds in chat. He's been dodging me though. I'm trying to set up a date, so got some Blood Legion versus Method Dota action. I'm gonna make them make Sko play because I heard he's pretty shitty. So
is it gonna be streamed or private?
I don't know. We'll just see. But I think it'll be pretty fun. I don't think either guild has too many super good players, so it should be pretty painful to watch.
Oh, yeah, well, that's why I'm wondering if it's gonna be streamed or not, or be hidden from the public eye, because that would be pretty fun, definitely. I know there's a couple of different. We talked about it a little bit before the pre-show about who plays League, who plays Dota. And I don't know if anyone plays Han anymore, but I know that's kind of a cool thing, is take the guilds to a different game and see how good they are against each other. That'd be pretty good. So then, speaking about top guilds though, and getting a little more specific with you guys, there's a huge difference between the top 1 to 5 guilds, and then even when you go past that, there's a huge difference between the top, next underneath that, like the next 6 to 20. So what can you tell us about being first in the U.S. and 7th in the U.S. that's different between the two of you, and then even going off that, what's different between like the pack as it changes down? Like Amy, to you guys, what is rating at your level like?
Well, so we don't really have to come up with strats, obviously, is like the first main thing. By the time that we get the content, most of the time there's a video, sometimes there isn't, but we can go into an encounter knowing, well, this works, so we don't have to like suffer like Blood Legion does through like countless polls to actually figure out a working strat. We try to come up with a strat while we're doing raid testing on the PTR, but it might turn out to be good, or it might not turn out to be as as good as what the top world first guilds do. So that's definitely one thing that's significantly different between the world first guilds and then top 10, top 20, or whatever. As far as everything else we do, we do multiple alt runs. Right now we do 2 full 13 out of 13 heroic clears, and then we have a normal 25-man clear, and then a bunch of 10-man. So I think alts are probably one of the biggest differentiators between like the top 20 and then moving down. It really allows you to class stack. Having people that are exceptional at multiple classes really allows you to deal with issues that you run into on your roster.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
for example, if somebody leaves, you're not completely screwed. You can have a player that has a geared alt step in and do the job. So those two things would pretty much be the main differences that I see, in the world first stage, and then the top 20, and then greater than top 20.
Definitely. And then Riggs, what do you have to go off that being the circumventing best guild in the U.S. right now, which we talked about a little bit before too? That's like a new thing for the U.S. to have that representation. So what's it like for you guys?
I'm not sure, like, I guess how to get into all of it. I mean, it's kind of like a whole can of worms, but it's try to, I guess, start it out is, I mean, one of the reasons I kind of hopped on the show today, I know I was talking with Veiled when she was talking to me about it, is there's a lot of, I guess, I don't know if you want to label it like misconceptions or what, but there are a lot of things I guess people don't really understand about what goes into, what happens in top guilds, and then what's the difference between, like you said, like a top 10 guild, a top 5 guild, and a top 3 guild or something like that. And I know whenever we were talking the other night, I was kind of telling you about it. Like whenever I was back in, Burning Crusade, or I was in a guild that was, it was clearing content, and that's really all that was like on my mind, was just kind of like, oh, nothing else. I didn't follow the super top raid scene or anything like that. And then even once I first started following that, it was kind of like, why would someone, because there were, back in the day when it was like death and taxes and things like that, and, there would be people swapping around between, those top guilds, and it was just like, it didn't make sense to me at the time, like why someone would be swapping around for like, from a number 4 guild to a number 2 guild, because in my mind it was like, why are they not satisfied? And it's like I said, there's like so much that goes into that, and the more that you play, and like I've been playing since vanilla hardcore rating since the beginning of Burning Crusade. It's just kind of like a domino effect. Once you get more involved with it, you start understanding the the intricacies and things like that, and eventually, especially when you get more experienced and things like that. I went from my old guild Duality to Forlorn Legacy, which was like going from like top 50 to top 10 US, and then once you get in the top 10, you start seeing like, okay, well, it's not just about time committed. There's a lot more that goes into it than that, and then like each spot that goes past that top 10 spot, it starts getting it's exponentially more. It's almost like it's a different game, because like Amy was talking about, it's not like knocking on other guilds, it's just like you're playing a different game at that level, because you don't have those videos. You don't even know if a boss is killable, because when you're in there initially, it's you've got this mindset of you're always having to fight the doubt of, is this how something is supposed to work, or is this going to be how it's supposed to work? And you've got the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, fear in like one part of your mind, where it's like, okay, well, I think this is right. Is this what we're going to put all our eggs in one basket and commit to like this strategy? Because, at the end of the day, the decisions that you make are what's going to determine the outcome of the tier, which is, what everyone's playing for. Like I said the other day, like, there's, once you get to like I'd say like the top 3 guilds right now. I mean, I think there were only 3 guilds that didn't clear. There were only 3 guilds that fully cleared content before videos and stuff like that were out for all the stuff. And then I think once Exorcist finished, they went ahead and put a video out. And then from that point forward, it's really a different ball game, because you're not in there trying to figure out how things work and things like that. So I think that's, I'm talking a lot, but I mean, it's just like all these points I can go super in depth on. Is one of the things I want to just make sure people understand is, it's not a game of just who puts in more time. It's about, putting in time is a factor in it, but the top guilds are guilds that can figure out the pieces of the puzzle. It's like you have an unsolved Rubik's Cube, and you have to figure out, the quickest way, because all of them are going to get it eventually. It's just the guild that's able to come up with a way to do it first, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. There was a little thing that we
Yeah.
talked about that I put in the notes for later, though, that we'll get into that was really pinpointed to me the difference in the top kills and then how that information trickles down to everyone else through videos and through people talking about stuff. So, yeah, and again, more of that in the meat and potato section. So,
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the Siege of Orgrimmar, and kind of on a related note to a previous topic, preparing and getting ready for the new tier. I'm going to ask Amy, what do you do to best prepare for the next tier in terms of alts, multiple raids, loot spreadsheets? What step do you take as a guild and as a leader to make sure that you're going into the tier well prepared?
So, as far as getting everybody geared, we're running multiple runs, making sure that everybody brings in the right alt. So, if somebody has geared one alt fully, we try to bring in a new alt to gear. Just trying to make sure that we have a good spread of alts, good spread of classes that we can class stack with. And in terms of just general preparation, you really got to be on top of people as a guild leader. Sometimes people will VP cap, for example. So you got to be like, what are you doing? And we actually have add-ons to kind of track that. We kind of like call the add-on like the NSA, like monitors people sometimes too much. So just making sure that people are prepared with stuff. As far as PTR goes, we've been trying to do a lot of flex so that people can be familiar with mechanics. We've had a couple of people come in the past and be like, well, I didn't know that ability does that. And, that's like completely unacceptable at, the top 10, top 20 level. So we're just making sure we don't have any of those, making sure that people know how the mechanics work. One of the things that we're kind of trying to do better this tier is a lot of people didn't know what other roles should be doing. So they just focus on doing what their class does or like what their role does in the raid. So we're trying to get everybody to understand, well, the tank is doing this and I'm a healer, so I understand what the tank is doing better, so I might be able to heal better. Or the DPS is doing this, so if I understand what they're doing, I might be able to, help them out in their tasks somehow. So it's basically been a lot of preparation as far as abilities go. And as far as like spreadsheets and stuff, we're trying to run 3 groups in the first week. And so I've been trying to put that stuff together, and it's kind of a nightmare trying to get all that done. And I don't, you can see the Blood Legion spreadsheets from DS, and they have like 6 groups on there. So you got to give it to them for being able to organize that that many people, that many alts into multiple groups. So
Definitely.
So
So
I want to comment, or I'm trying to interject real quick before I
Yeah.
miss my opportunity at the jab. I know he's talking about like people that are not prepared and stuff like that's not really stuff. I was like, just gonna let you know, man, it never goes away. Like I have people. I don't know if you have seen if you've ever heard of Adele or Affinity, but that's a weekly ordeal is fighting those 2. Yeah, enchant. Like I'm pretty sure you could armory some of Adele's characters right now. Some blue gear. I mean, it's
Oh, jeez.
it's always something.
Yeah. I think.
Your mic is muted, Bay.
Whoops.
really, am I really? Oh, what the heck?
Good. GG.
Okay, well, I only said that every guild gets that, and I was just laughing. So
Oh man.
every guild gets that at every level, depending on where you are. So
GG.
that's pretty terrible.
I was going to ask about, well, after doing the PTR, you guys are pretty familiar with all the fights on normal. I mean, I guess I'll ask you kind of, Amy, what are you gonna do the second week? So you're probably gonna just go through the first week on, with 3 different groups, get all the loot you can. Are you going to immediately start, heroics and just kind of brute forcing your way through? or are you gonna have groups simultaneously go through on normal and try and gear up if you weren't properly geared up the first week? Like if you didn't get something that you absolutely needed, what do you plan on doing kind of with heroics and the second week of raiding?
Well, I mean, if heroics are out, we have to be in there, right? The gear doesn't matter. So as soon as the heroics are out, we're going to be doing them. You know, doing so would really set us back a lot of ranking, I think. So we just got to get in there no matter what.
Yeah, just get in there. And then Riggs, I was gonna ask you kind of what do you do as to prepare for you know, the next patch in terms of your PTR, your spreadsheets. I know you dedicate a lot of time, and about how much time do you spend on farm versus PTR? I mean, are you really buckling down for PTR, or are you just kind of, look, normal's going to be easy peasy, we'll just go through it fine the first week, and then we'll start having to get into the nitty gritty? I mean, what's the best way you prepare, and specifically, what do you do to prepare?
It's kind of like a multi-part answer. Actually, does Bay have that screenshot I linked you earlier of like the spreadsheets? I think it should be earlier in Skype. I gave it to you before the convo.
You want the one of the
The raid group.
kills?
No,
or,
no, 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 no.
or the
There should be
screenshot
a
you posted?
Screenshot. No, 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 no.
Let me see, let me grab
I'll
it.
find it in a second. But anyways,
Yeah.
to get into her question, kind of like preparation, like I said, right now we're trying to actually keep the rating on live down to a minimum because of how much the PTR takes up. Like I said, you know, nobody wants to be on the game. Like, I mean, everybody, or I guess best way to put it, everybody understands what's coming up in a couple weeks, and that's going to be like, you know, balls deep, like, you know, in there from the time you wake up until almost the time you go to bed. And it's like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to end up rating less than your average guild, even if you consider the alt runs, because, you know, you pretty much just front load your time. So for, you know, the 2 weeks after the instance comes out, you're going to pretty much, you know, just be in there, and you're going to be done in, you know, probably, I'd say, around average 2 resets, you know, 1 to 2 resets. If it goes more than that, it's probably going to be a nightmare of a fight. But, you know, we've yet to see. But as far as like PTR and like precedence and priority and whatnot, the normals isn't, you know, if people have stuff going on, you know, nobody's going to be leaving work or anything like that to try and be on a test normals. I mean, as long as we have enough people there to test, you know, test the bosses, it's, you know, and as like, you know, somebody in the guild, you know, make a perhaps or a video or something like that, and just, you know, between the 25 normal and the 10-man normal, everybody in the guild pretty much has seen the boss at some point and understands what's going on. And I mean, the real testing doesn't start until 25-man heroic, and obviously that's really high priority. Making sure that everybody gets in there, you know, and that's when you start working on the actual, you know, heroic mechanic strats and things like that. I mean, there's already pretty much every guild already has a baseline strat for any boss that they've tested. You know, and the, you know, the hard part is, you know, figuring out the, you know, how to deal with the heroic mechanics. And even if some of the mechanics are similar, it's, you know, the game completely changes because of the HP numbers and things of that nature. So
Yeah, completely.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and on another note, you know, going through and kind of having the first glimpse of the new patch and the new content, what is truth and what is community rumor? So, for example, time spent raiding the first few weeks of the instance, you know, are you actually taking time off, like people with jobs, are they taking time off to raid? I mean, are you guys going full force? And, you know, there's a lot of questions about hand-holding and how much input you have into maybe changing the boss if there's, you know, certain feedback. For example, like, you know, say a boss has mechanics that need to get nerfed. I mean, do you have deep involvement with Blizzard when it comes to that? I mean, there's a bunch of different things that are probably going to come up, but I think the best, or the first question to address would be, you know, how much time do you guys spend, and do you guys take time off to raid?
Yeah, the first part of that question, as far as time off and how that goes, you know, people don't take like a month off work or something like that. People do take off work, and it's usually that Tuesday through that Friday. You know, most people have, you know, Monday through Friday jobs. So that Tuesday through Friday, you know, they take off those days, and that's real. The first week is whenever you are going to get through pretty much every boss until you hit that wall. In each instance, it's a different point. Like in Dragon Soul, it was all the way up until Spine. In, you know, tier I guess the entry tier to MOP was the way it was gated and whatnot, there was no real. Um, if you guys hear my dog squeaking his toy, I don't really
That's
know
totally
if he'll
fine.
stop. But yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, what I was saying, like the entry level to MOP, I forget what tier number that is, 14 or something,
Yep.
13. I don't,
Yeah.
or so many now, I'm losing count of the numbers. But yeah, that one it wasn't really that bad because it was all gated and nothing took longer than a week. But take like Throne of Thunder for example, that one was I think Method killed it at the very end of the second week, and we killed it at the third week. So of heroics. So I mean, like just to put a general time frame in, and the only week that everybody's going full force is the first week, and that's when everybody's taking off work. I'm pretty sure that's probably the same for Method and Exorcist as well. I don't think anybody has the ability to have their entire guild take off multiple weeks for, things like that. So,
mm,
that first week is the only time people are taking off work, and the amount of raid hours that we put in during that first week is pretty much we're on when the server comes up. We call the raid when it starts becoming inefficient, whether that's at 3, 5 a.m. or what have you. Um, People go, get some rest and then get back in there and do it again. And like I said, that only happens, roughly twice a year for 4 days at a time. So you're looking at 8 days out of the entire year that you're really pushing the, pedal to the floor that hard. So and just to, I think people lose perspective of that a lot. People think that, you know, we live on the game 24/7 and things like that, but it's very a lot of people in the guild do have jobs. A lot of people in the guild are full-time students and things like that, and you can't ask them to jeopardize things like that. So, I mean, it's kind of really like balancing, an actual, uh, group of people that have to deal with things like that. So,
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's a lot of
Um,
misconception about what people think about people taking off
yeah, I
time.
think arguably, you probably spend about the same or maybe even less time than lower ranked guilds. Would you say that's accurate, or do you make up the time that you save, through your efficient rating? Do you make up that time doing something else, like working on other content or doing alt runs?
I think that it depends. I guess who you're comparing it to. Like a guild that's, you know,
Let's say
clearing
like
content like
20th or something, or like
I don't know if you can really put a number on it. I guess it just depends on what the guild is doing. Like if that guild just wants to do one run a week and be done with it, I mean obviously they're rating less than what we are. Right now we raid. I guess it's debatable. Okay, just what I'm getting at is like right now we raid 2 nights a week. We do 2 full clears, 13 out of 13. An average clear takes us anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours.
hmm
So that's 6 hours a week that we actually spend rating on live, and 6 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's not that much of an investment. But to get to that point, I mean, we were doing split raids when a lot of people were still working on progression. And we already had our second. I think we only like we started our second raid. Actually, I mean, we kept doing the 2 raids even during progression. Like the last night of progress, like each week, Monday night, we will, wrap up whatever we're doing and then get the alts. I mean, because you're going to need the alts at some point, and you can't neglect the fact that they're going to need gear. So you got to find the time to put the time in for that and whatnot. So I guess to
Yeah.
answer your question is it just depends on what you're comparing. I mean, you're not rating less than people who attempt to raid the minimal amount, but you're also not raiding a lot at the same time. You know what I mean? 6 hours a
hmm
week on live. So
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I think it
Um,
definitely changes. And is that any different for you though, Amy? What do you guys feel like at your level?
So, so with us, in the first week, we don't really have people take time off. We pretty much start the raid at our usual raid time, and we pretty much raid the same hours that we do, the entire tier. We have a lot of people to work, and a lot of the guild is West Coast, and a lot of the guild is East Coast, so we can't really start early either. So we just stick to the normal hours. And then once progression is over, progression for us being 5 days a week, 4 hours, we'll usually scale back to actually for 4 days sometimes, for the 2 combined runs and then the third run. And then since we have so many people that love alts, we'll do these optional runs here and there. But in terms of total time invested, it's really tough to say, compared to, guilds that rate at Blood Legion's level. It's really tough to put a number on the amount of time you invest, but I would say it's probably pretty close in terms of, front loading it or just like having it pretty constant throughout the tier.
Yeah, I think that's different. Yeah, because Jenny's guild and I are really close. Like in overall, like we only raid 4 nights a week. We only put in about 14 to 16 hours, and then during heroic progression at first, like we'll add like an hour on this night if we're close to a boss, or we'll push for like an extra Friday here and there. But we never really like changed the whole dichotomy of our raid schedule. But we don't really take off time for us at our point, like for as you was 40th, right? But I definitely feel like during progression, everyone adds on a little bit more. They add a little bit more. People push a little bit harder because they don't want to be at that level for long periods of time. Because you want to get kind of to the farm mode a little sooner so you can like kind of relax again. Because if you're in that progression mindset for 3 or 4 months or more, where you're putting extra time in every night, like that can be really draining.
That's very draining. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, with Archdruid, we pretty much just keep it the same. Although this will be my first tier where I'm actually involved, from the start, because I joined Archdruid when they were doing Darumu progression. They were already 8 out of 13 when I joined, and I only had about 4 out of 13 experience. So it's going to be a little bit different, but from what I understand, it's pretty much going to be the same. Like if we're really close, we just maybe push another day or another hour, whatever. But I think for the most part, everyone is just trying to stick with their schedule, especially because school's starting. So that kind of makes up too.
No, it definitely does. And it always depends, too, when the patches drop as well. Like, we had a pretty rough tier 14 because of Christmas, where we didn't even raid for, like, almost 2 weeks, like, solid. That was during progression. And that can affect guilds differently, too. So, like, right now, we have a patch coming out with nothing really around it. I think there's tons of, like, open time for people to really do this and take off time. It always just depends on when the patches fall, too. Like, all the logistics and things come involved, too. Each guild kind of handles that, differently. But I guess to quell the rumor, you guys don't raid 18 hours a day, 6.5 days a week when patches are out, right?
Wait, when they first come out?
Well, yeah, like
are you talking about?
Well, even when they first come out, I know that there are. I think Sko and Spark both talked about it a little bit, where they do like 12 to 16-hour days with like big breaks in between, kind of like have rotating stuff. But that only lasts for like a week or two.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's the first week is whenever it's all. That's when you front load everything, is that first week. And then once the second week rolls around, you got to start bouncing around people having to get back to work or school or things like that. I mean, even during that first week, somebody that's got like a test or something, no one's ever going to ask anybody to compromise, any type of school or job related anything. So if they can't get time off work, or if they have to, do something at school that can't be, done at a later date or whatnot, I mean, you just have to work around that. And that's the reason you have more than 25 people on your roster, and
yeah.
But that first week, you're rating, from as soon as the server comes up until that following day, until you go to bed, then have everybody go get a few hours sleep. Raid leader and anybody that wants to put in theorycraft, we're staying up and, going over, because whenever you stop, that's going to be on a boss, obviously, and that you're working on. So, once the raid's over, I'm going through logs, I'm going through fraps and things like that, making sure that everything's ready to go for tomorrow. As soon as we get back in there, it's not like, oh, raid's over, my job's done. You know what I mean? So, like, people still have to put in a little bit of time after the raid. But, let people get some rest, get back in there. And, when a patch hits, it's 7 days a week until it's finished. Like I said, it's an average of about 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
So
This is probably a really unconventional question, but during patch week, do you have any do you change your daily habits in any kind of weird ritualistic way? Like, how you have the holidays, you decorate, you might cook different things. Like during patch week, do you just buy a lot of Hot Pockets, or do you change your sleep schedule? Like, is there any kind of thing that you do to prepare for, patch week that's like twice a year?
Definitely, one thing that's, I guess, a tradition, more or less, is, we always have people that go out and do a ton of grocery shopping, like the night or so before a patch hits. I know, usually every time a patch is going to hit, I find myself at, 24-hour Walmart, buying tons of,
Nice.
You try to keep it, I'm sure people have seen that nutrition paste bin that was posted or whatever, that got taken, completely out of context. But yeah, you try to, get people to get stuff that's actually healthy for them to eat, like fruits and things like that. But yeah, I probably stick more to I don't know. I like beef jerky quite a bit. I'll get a lot of beef jerky. That's usually pretty good. Beef jerky, almonds, and like water or Propel or something like that. But
What
it's
about
usually
you?
what I stick with.
Yeah, what about you, Amy? Anything like that for you guys?
We don't really change it up much since it's pretty much the same schedule. So I think some people will get a lot of energy drinks and things like that for that first week since they stay up later than they should, but nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy though.
Yeah.
I know we have someone in Crisp, for example, that I don't think ever logs off the game. Even when there's progression or not progression, we think he's a robot, honestly.
Huh.
I honestly think he's a robot. He actually has had times where he will post pictures of his desktop, like his setup, right, and have all like the different cans and different sizes like stacked up of energy drinks he drinks, which I totally disagree with because I think energy drinks, once you get to a certain tolerance level, they don't affect you anymore, and you're just drinking fake calories for no reason, and you're sitting here, right, so it just ruins you. But yeah, we've seen a couple of those pictures on our forums about how his pyramid of energy drinks happens, but that's to each their own. Oh, I gotta switch now because we've
Oh,
got
puppy.
Supremus here.
Limited time exposure.
Yeah.
He's probably gonna start weaseling his way out of here in a second.
But hey, now we know. We're gonna send
there he
a
goes.
patch week care package to Riggs to include Propel. And
Yeah.
So.
Usually get him he's already running down, but you gotta get him a squeaky toy too. Keep him occupied because he gets rather anxious whenever I'm writing, like all day, every day, because I usually take him out and walk him or whatever, but
Yeah.
end up having to give him like a very durable toy that squeaks and it keeps him occupied.
Mm-hmm.
Drives me crazy and mumble a lot of the times when I'm keying my mic. You just hear a squeaky toy going off in the background.
I think to any of us that have peeped the stream, I think we've heard the squeaky toy, definitely. I don't know if people will hear it in this stream because of how I have the audio settings set up, but yeah, I think it's definitely there. But that's awesome, though. To bounce back just a little bit after all the 5.4 stuff we just talked about right now, at the top of the world, I guess is what I call this, top of the world of Warcraft. For you guys and your experience and what you've had and what the accolades you've done with all this time, what to you guys has been like the most rewarding boss victory as a guild? Like the one that took you so long to beat and that was just like, it was the hugest nerdgasm on your vents or mumbles. Like what to you comes to mind? Like Amy, go with you first.
So this one's really tough. So it was tied between Heroic Lich King and Heroic Ragnaros, and actually linked you one of the paste bins that one of the guys did in our guild at that time for Heroic Ragnaros. It took 463 attempts,
Oh my.
which was pretty awesome. And that one was definitely very rewarding, especially with the stuff that was going on in the guild at that time. And then, with Heroic Lich King, we were like the US 100th then, and that one took 3.5 months to kill. So that one was really rewarding for me because it was finally over. It's pretty miserable. And then if I had to say anything recent, I'd say probably Lei Shen, especially since it was one of the probably best fights they've ever put in. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've talked about that a bunch on the show too, about how that fight has so many different levels of intricacy that other fights back in the day just didn't have. So, absolutely. And what about you, Riggs? Most rewarding boss victory as a guild?
That's hard, man, because I don't know. I don't know, for anybody that knows me, I'm a pretty passionate person. Like when it comes to that type of stuff, I mean, like I take it super serious and I get really, invested in. It doesn't really matter, like, what guild I've been in. It's been kind of the same. So, I mean, I definitely remember, back in when I had my guild, it was named Duality back on Storm Reaver. I know some of those kills were super rewarding. Jenni's raid leader or guild leader now, Rob, he was back in the guild with me at the time. I mean, like, just things like that. I mean, I know a lot of people that were in those kills, like Yogg, Lich King, and then you go to Forlorn Legacy, our heroic Lich King kill, and then in Blood Legion, heroic Rag, Lei Shen, and Shaw. I mean, pretty much everything. Because I mean, like every one of those boss kills, it has so much invested in it, like that. I mean, it just the type of things I think about is just the amount of effort and sacrifice and just dedication that people commit to things like that. Because what a lot of people don't want to talk about, like the real talk section of it, is it's just like when you're in there, and I know everybody that's push content, they know what I'm talking about. Like, you get to that point where you just, you've always have people, it doesn't matter what rank your guild is in, you always have people that question, like, man, this sucks, you know what I mean? Like, just wiping nonstop, and you're just like,
Yep.
you have people that are frustrated, and you have people that are getting mad at each other because you're around each other all the time and things like that, but people stick it out. And I mean, that's, it just gets into the leadership part, making sure your guild's strong enough to handle that stuff. But I mean, it's like every one of the boss kills that we have that it's at the end of a tier is, it's very, very rewarding, because I think about all that stuff that goes into that. But I'd say if I had to pick, it would almost be a tie between Empress, because that was the first time a U.S. guild has gotten an end of the instance kills since Blackwing Lair,
Yeah.
I think, in vanilla, and that one was pretty rewarding, because I mean, and I'm pretty sure that was before even a 10-man guild had killed it, so you didn't even have the nerds getting into that, but I don't even want to open that can of worms. But so that was like, you were the undisputed, it was just like, to know that you were the only group of people in the world that had killed that boss, you know what I mean? I'm sure, Method, the guys are in chat, I mean, they could say the same thing after Lei Shin died, I mean, like, to know that you were the only guild in the world to have killed something. I mean, that night when you're going to bed, you're just sitting there and you're just like, I mean, it's one of the better feelings. And it just, people take that out of context too, like it's a video game. I mean, it's everybody has their hobbies and their, interests and things like that. So, I mean, it's, for the people that commit the time and things like that, it's definitely a rewarding feeling. But I'd say that along with the Riggnaros kill at the BlizzCon live raid. I don't know if that constitutes, but that was definitely one of the top rating moments, is whenever it was in front of a ton of people, and that was, a few years back, and that was, I think, pretty much when we made our move into the #1 U.S. spot, and pretty much been there since then.
What was the time difference? You guys killed him before, what was like the...
It was a whole shit show, man. Like, I was trying to raid from a hotel, and my Wi-Fi went out from across the street, because Wi-Fi at any type of convention like that is really, unreliable. But, like, think throughout the entire raid, I don't know if anybody's ever paid attention to stuff like that, but we only had 3 deaths throughout the entire clear, like the whole thing. I mean, we were definitely, the better prepared, and, and things like that. I mean, we had like minimal to no mistakes, but the one thing that really set us back was the fact that I DC'd on Rylith, and I had to run from the hotel all the way to the convention center, in the convention center, to the computer, get set up, and then rebind my keys, like while they were finishing Rylith and before we did Alice Razor. So that was one of the reasons that it was kind of close, but they ended up wiping on Riggnaros, and it was pretty much once they wiped, we knew that all we had to do was not wipe, we were fine. We were ahead going into it, though, and I think the closest it got, if you ever go back and watch the video, Rag's foot is literally probably like a millimeter from eating a root before the Empowered Self-Risk goes off, which would have been a wipe, but it was super intense and close, for sure.
Yeah. That was really cool that they did that in the first place, and I didn't get to catch. I didn't think it was a Gamescom stream of the Method stuff. As far as I could like look around to find that, I don't think there's any Blizzard live streaming event of the Gamescom covered. I'd love to see if there's a video of that, because that's always cool to me as a PvE like raider. I love seeing that kind of stuff. There's been so much PvP in the limelight, but there's never been that. And once Blizzard started doing those kind of events, it's really awesome to see. Definitely is awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm excited for BlizzCon for that very reason. So.
Yeah, do we have... I know we were talking about that later in the show, but we can just skip to that. Do we have anything live this year that you know of for PvE-oriented stuff at BlizzCon this year?
I think that will be up to Blizzard. I'm not sure if they're going to do something or not. I would greatly like to defend our reigning title.
Yeah.
Hopefully they could set something up between Method. I would have no problem giving SCO the whip down in front of a few thousand people.
Shots fired. You think? I don't know. Those are some pretty powerful eyebrows, though. I'm not sure he might deflect your whip just with the eyebrows.
Then again, he has, he's got the hat. He got the hats.
That would be interesting to see.
SCO's a softie, man.
Oh
Roger
no.
Brown.
Uh-oh.
Roger Brown spilled the beans. He's pretty much like one of those guys that's all bark, no bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Uh-oh. So then in the same raid, go back on topic here for a second. The most prepared, researched, or practiced encounter you guys have dealt with so far, like spreadsheet wise, or just like background research, PTR testing. What has like been the longest winded boss you guys have worked on to finally get a kill? Do you think? Amy, what do you think is going with you guys?
I'd probably say Lei Shen. There was a lot of preparation done there as far as, positioning the correct people in the correct areas, having the correct cooldowns, and then the add-on work there. I think I spent, probably close to like 40 hours on just the Lei Shen add-on piece that we use in Guild.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was probably the number one there. And, later on I'll kind of show you that Lei Shen add-on and
Yeah.
what's going on there. But
Definitely. No, absolutely. And then what about you, Riggs?
I don't know. I mean, like, an insane amount of, I'd say preparation-wise, it's pretty similar. I know Animus was one that comes to mind, where it was like just insane amounts of different spreadsheet. Everybody had their own spreadsheet because everybody was arguing about the order that the golems needed to be killed and the positioning and all that stuff. Animus had a ton of, it's from a pure spreadsheet volume. I would say Animus had the most, but as far as like just long-winded, I think Spine and Lei Shen are the two that come to mind over the rest.
Oh,
Is
God.
Spine was, yeah, I mean Spine was a different. I guess actually they were very similar as far as like how it worked out with Blood Legion, because both fights we had a strat, got very close to a kill, and then had to change the strat entirely and relearn the entire encounter. So I mean it was the same for both of those fights. So that kind of added to the wipe counter, but. Both of them were in the 400s, I think, as far as wipes. I think Spine may have been low 400s, and Lei Shen was like mid to high 400s. But yeah, and you're talking about that many wipes in like a 2-week window. It gets
Yeah.
pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the 400 plus wipes on Lei Shen heroic, and it took us 185 when we finally killed it. But we did that over like almost 4 weeks, I think. I think we did one, and then we extended for 2, and then killed it. But you guys do that all in the initial push, so that's on top of everything else you've already killed in that thing. So yeah, it's a different realm that I think people don't, need to understand and respect that dedication that you guys put into it. That's a lot of time. Each wipe on Lei Shen could be, 10 minutes into the fight. So that you've already pushed 15 minutes or more into a fight between pre-pull and then after and wiping and rezzing and stuff like that and talking for a little bit.
I wish it would have been that consistent early on. I wish we were having consistent 10-minute wipes. Sadly, it was not the case. I mean, we've got like, I don't know if somebody could, I should have actually found the picture of the Berry Bonds and Affinity scoreboard. It got to the point where we had a mod that tracked the first like 4 people that died every pull, and it kept a running counter. And because, when you start putting a number beside someone's name, they start, it starts sinking in, because you got a lot of people that don't really understand, like, oh, I keep messing up early and it's costing us the pull constantly. Yeah. And, when Affinity starts to see his name, like 10, 12 points higher than the second place person, it kind of sinks in. So, yeah.
Oh man, Spark wants you to show the wipe counter. So, you don't, do you know if you have that? Does Affinity have that?
The thing is, I don't know. I think he's talking about. Are you talking about? Let me see if I can find it. You guys are talking about something else. I'll try.
Yeah, definitely. While you find that, because Spark asked for it, it's totally okay. I was going to bring up morale and guild cohesion during progression. Basically, we talked about it a little bit though before, but like I don't know what you do with how your guild handles stuff, Jenny, because we're sort of in the same boat with progression, and we kind of like deal with it, and we only have so much time to deal with it, where we don't put a whole lot more into it. We all kind of understand that where not our place in the world, but our place in our rankings, where we can learn from the people below us and above us, and how we're like in our own little ranking system. But we don't. Mm-hmm. We all kind of keep the morale up because we know we've improved. We jumped 13 places this tier alone, and
yeah.
I don't know. What do you, Jenny? What's different between you guys? I'll let you blabble on about it real quick while Riggs finds this.
About my guild and how we keep up our morale. Well,
yeah.
I mean, we've come quite a long way. This is actually the first expansion where it has 25 man. Traditionally, they were 10 man. And I think, the guild has really grown, and I think it's actually really great You know, aside from, you know, the in-game action, the raid action or whatever, we have a lot of things that Rob and Jan take a lot of time and they invest a lot of time into doing to keep our morale up. For example, we had the Spectral Tiger raffle recently. I mean, it was one way to help
Ooh.
the G Bank, but it was also a good incentive for doing well on certain fights. Um, I don't. I lost the VOD. Twitch deleted the VOD, but you know there was maybe a certain someone who offered to sing if we killed a certain boss with a certain other person who
Did they
played.
sing?
Oh, they sung a beautiful
Ooh.
duet that was Aladdin.
Perfect.
I don't think we'll hear any rerun of it anytime soon, but
I have no
um,
idea what you're talking about.
you don't know, you don't
Oh.
remember beautiful.
Nope.
I'm just gonna spill the
Do you have a
bits.
VOD? If you don't have a VOD, it never
I don't-
happened.
Well, okay, I have the last part of the VOD. I'll link the VOD in chat, but the
Whoa!
duet
No, I
and
thought you
Gallus
didn't have the
was-
VOD.
we did the first half of the kill, so they did not hear you make the deal, and they didn't hear you guys, you know, talking about geometry and whatnot. But the last part is just, you know, I think that's a good way to keep up guild morale and little things like that. And I mean, that wasn't, you know, my guild. That was Blood Legion, so.
Uh-oh. You gotta link that? Uh-oh. Let's see. Chat's
me-
going a
let me
little
find
crazy
it.
for that. That's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. Well, while she finds that, Amy, what do you guys do at the 7th US? Like, how have you guys improved? What do you do during raids to keep everyone's spirits high?
So for this one, I think I wrote a book, but I think that's for like
Yeah,
the later
I think you
section.
did.
Yeah.
I think you did.
So I guess the main thing during raid is like the two main things have been the morale starts kind of like at the top. So if I'm in a shitty mood, that will rub off on the rest of the raid. So I try my best not to be, but you know when you're wiping nonstop or somebody keeps making a stupid mistake, you know you're going to go off on that person most likely. So I kind of try to minimize that or try to keep it as professional as possible, but it's not always possible. And so I just really try to be mindful of my own mood, since I am the raid leader, and you know if I've had a shitty day at work, I try not to let it really kind of rub off on the rest of the guild. And I guess the second thing is humor. You might not be a comedian, but every guild has one. So we try to utilize multiple people to kind of like make jokes or like lighten the mood. We'll talk about stupid stuff. Like for example, last week we were actually talking about Leeds. One of our elemental shaman was like, "Man, Leeds is a really hot chick. I can't wait to get with that." And we're
Oh,
like,
no.
"Dude, Leeds is a dude," and he's like, "Oh man," and it just it just went from there. So we just try to have fun, and that really lightens the mood. And what we've noticed is, the lighter the mood, the better you'll do sometimes. And if you've been wiping for the entire night, a couple jokes here and there will definitely help out with getting the boss down.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's I've seen that before too. It's that picture that he has on his Twitter account of the chick with the Pokebra. Yeah, that's. Don't be fooled, audience. Don't be fooled.
It's a trap.
So, it's a trap. Literally.
It's actually a trap.
Now we gotta get Leeds on the show now to defend his or her sexuality. I feel like we're dogging on him or her. So yeah, you have the all-time leaders wipes. This is the picture you have, Riggs. This is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I
when we actually, I think, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Adele, but I'm not sure if he ended up passing him or not. But I think this was right as we killed it. I don't remember if we had any more added to that after he made the photo, because I think he made it the night before we killed it. So it would be interesting to see if he actually passed Barry up. But yeah.
Oh my, it's pretty good. I'll go with it. That's pretty good. Also terrible. Where's that VOD before we move on real quick?
I just linked it in chat.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's somewhere after the kill, so you can't hear him make the promise, and I thought it was really funny listening to them argue about the geometry. I really looked forward to highlighting that. I didn't, but you guys can see the duet after the kill. So once Rawden's dead, I don't know exactly what time it happens, but you guys can kind of experiment with that and see.
Yeah. Well,
It's great. It's very emotional, and it brings a tear to my eye.
Brings a tear to your eye.
Yeah.
Well, it brings a tear to my eye, and this is a perfect segue while we move along here. is right here with I do this every week. I don't know why I click on Jenni before me. That's totally okay. Every week we talk about how we make this possible and how Final Boss TV has evolved and who we work with right now. And it's definitely growing. We'll have some new people to talk about here on the show eventually, but one of the biggest names that I really love to talk about is that in partnership and in cooperation with manaflask.com, where the community brews, is a definitely big help for getting the show out there. They have tons of awesome community write-ups, guides, streams, news reports, and stuff like that on their website. Tons of amazing content over at manaflask.com. And without them, some of this wouldn't even be possible. And then to go even deeper into the rabbit hole, howtopriest.com is super awesome to be on board the entire project. If you need to know anything about priest, shadow discipline, or holy, go over there, sign up for their forums, make an account, and start talking to all the other amazing priests that are out there on howtopriest.com. And learn how to priest as the entire thing, built upon the basically the remains and the skeleton of shadowpriest.com, which we all know and loved in our hearts back in the olden days of World of Warcraft. But totally amazing mods over there, lots of awesome people. Learn how to do all that good stuff on the forums if you have any questions, or if you have people that are new to priest or old to priest or coming back to it. Go over there and check that out. Definitely awesome to have them part of the show. So don't watch the video of Rig singing just yet. It might distract you from the meat and potatoes we're going to get into right now. So the main portion of each show is we're going to basically break down what these two know about the game, what Riggs and Amy are going to bring to us. So we're going to take what it takes to be at the top, and we're going to break down some big differences between what they do and what you can take away from how these top guys do what they do. So without further ado, I will kick it over right now to Jenni, and she can take the first couple of this because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but I think these are really great questions, and it would definitely be insightful towards people who are looking towards improving, or, you know, the way that they guild lead if they have a guild of their own. So I'm actually going to start with the first topic, which is going to be personal goals, drives, and motivations, which is a big thing to a lot of WoW players. I know for a fact it's a huge thing to me, you know, improving and being motivated. And I know that it's a lot of the reason why these guilds, like, you know, Promethean and Blood Legion, why they are where they are is because of their drive and motivation. So I guess a really good question is, what does it take to be a raid leader or to guild lead at the top, to be the best of the best at guild leading? I mean, what does it take, and what kind of person do you have to be?
Who wants it first?
Go ahead.
Who wants it first?
Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Riggs can, you know, totally just rip it apart, but I'd like to hear from Amy.
So I do both the guild leading and the raid leading in my guild, which is, you know, kind of a lot of work, but over time I've just gotten used to it. So I guess I'll just talk about the raid leading aspect of it first.
Sure.
So over time I've kind of noticed that, you know, if you want to raid lead, you really have to be one of the better players in your guild, or if not the best player, and I'm not necessarily saying that I am, but you really have to kind of set an example for your raiders. So, like, if somebody makes a mistake and you just made that mistake the attempt before, you can't really rip into them in the full extent because they're just going to say, well, you just screw that up. You know, how can you be telling me to improve? So you really need to try to make the least amount of mistakes, and, you know, be extremely prepared, and kind of every raid you have to give 110% as far as performance goes. In addition to that, in terms of raid leading, you really have to be able to kind of watch all 25 players. There was a time, you know, when the guild, I guess this was during Wrath, we kind of took a break from the game, and I came back for like a 2-week period, or I was gone for a 2-week period and came back to the game, and I noticed that I really had massive issues kind of keeping track of all 25 people, and over the next month or so that ability came back. But that's really something that you build up over time, and you really need to be able to kind of track everybody. You really need to be able to kind of watch people's positioning, what they're doing, and it's critical in fixing issues during the encounter. You need to be able to know, you know, if somebody's standing in the wrong spot, or if, you know, they're casting something stupid, or, you know, they're eating shit to like overcharge or something like that. And then the other thing, as far as a raid leader, you really need to be stern. You need to like put down your foot a lot. And we've all seen the rig videos, sometimes, you know, flipping out at people. But, you know, it sometimes really is necessary. You really need to, you know, silence mumble if people are like, you know, talking too much during an encounter. Or, you know, if we're going on a strat safari, we like to call in our guild. If we're like unable to settle on a strat. So like everybody's like, well, we should try
Ooh,
this, we should try that.
I like that. I'm using that. Is that copywritten? I'm using that. That's amazing.
You could use that.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Anytime somebody does that, it's like, well, we're going on a strat safari. We put it on your safari hats.
it's pretty good.
I like it.
Um, and also as a raid leader, you really have to be kind of looking at optimizing your communication. One of the things I noticed is it's really important how you call stuff out. Like, for example, I'm the tank in my guild, and if I say, pain suppression me, and then I say it in 10 seconds, I'll usually get the pain suppression before I get to finish my sentence. So what you really should be doing is saying, like, I'll need or in 10 seconds, can you give me a pain suppression? So that's just like a really simple example, but you really have to be kind of mindful of the way you speak to the raid and, the way you coordinate the raid. And it's really, the way you say things in a sentence is really important, in getting people to do the things you want them to do.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
And one of the big things that I ended up doing during Dragon Soul is knowing every single role and knowing every single spec and basically being able to play anybody else's character. So during Dragon Soul, I essentially ended up leveling up every single character to 90 and rating on it. And that kind of built a foundation for basically knowing every spec. And I've kind of tried to keep that up. Right now I play all 5 tanks and have done progression on all 5 tanks. And I have DPS characters that I play, and I try to keep up on everything. So you really have to be extremely knowledgeable as a raid leader. And again, the preparation is kind of critical. The amount of time that people say that they invest in raiding, as a simple raider, you just show up for 4 hours. Hopefully, you do some research ahead of time. But as a raid leader, you basically have to do like double the time, if not triple the time, to kind of be prepared over everything. And I kind of wrote a book here, so I don't want to go too over, but you kind of have to be obsessed over lost time. Any lost time is costing you progress, and you're gonna lose ranks, or people are gonna get unhappy with you. So you really have to like push people to like minimize downtime, minimize stupid wipes, and just get everybody doing what they need to be doing, as quickly as possible. And I guess I can come back to the guild leading piece if Rig wants to go ahead and talk about the raid leading piece.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can get into it a little bit, but I mean, I agree with quite a bit of what you said there. I was kind of like jotting down some like topics while he was going over some of those, and like just kind of like points that I would want to, I guess, explain to people. Like if people find themselves as in a guild leader position, or I'm sorry, as a raid leader position. I can't really comment too much on the guild leader position. That's Sonker in our guild. And the thing, even in Forlorn Legacy, I was the only time I've really been in a GM is when I have my own guild, and that's I don't really enjoy the personnel decision making nearly as much as I enjoy just more or less quarterbacking the raid, or however you want to label it. But just to go over some of the things is, I mean, like Amy pointed out, I mean, as a raid leader, you definitely want to be the example. I mean, it's like that's one of the things from my time in the Marine Corps that really stuck with me more than anything. The number one thing that I took away from there is, if you want to be successful, obviously you have to follow until you learn enough about something. And then once you become a leader, you have to lead from the front by example. And, it's definitely something that I put into pretty much anything that I do, not just WoW. But, that's definitely a key part of it. On top of that, situational awareness, you definitely have to make sure that you have really good situational awareness. You can't be like Rob and Jenny's guild leader, where it's he's tunneling on his action bars or whatever, and he doesn't really know what's going on with the other people. But I'm just busting his chops. He's actually pretty solid situational awareness. But yeah, everyone has to be on the same sheet of music. That's another thing I had on here. Is just you got to make sure that everybody's committed. It's like everybody understands the goal, everybody understands what needs to happen to accomplish this goal, and you can't have people that are on a different like wavelength than the others. You know what I mean? Because if you guys have ever done it, for anybody in chat or anything, if you're rating like hardcore progression, the weakest link is going to show up, and they're whenever you get to that fight, which is the fight of the tier, whether it's Spine, whether it's Riggnaros, whether it's Shafir, whether it's Lei Shin, whether it's Animus. I mean, you can name dozens upon dozens of the fight. You know what I mean? Like pretty much any fight that's going to be testing all 25 of your raiders on an individual basis, that weak link is going to stick out like a sore thumb. And, that's why, you have to have everyone, at a certain skill level or above. And I'm not saying that everybody in the guild is, everybody in my guild is not the best players in the U.S. No, that's not what I'm getting at. We are the best combined group of people, but you're going to have a skill curve within the guild, and it definitely helps for the raid leader to be. I don't necessarily know if you would say he's like the best player. I mean, I'll go ahead and say right now there are people in the guild that are better individual players than I am, like at their respective roles. I'm not like naive, and that doesn't mean that I'm saying that I'm bad or something. I'm just saying that like I think that I'm more of consistent, I guess would be the best way I could describe my own play, and that's because it's to me it's a lot of the time I'm not even really looking at I'm looking at other stuff that's going on. Like I'll be tanking the boss, like your rotations and things like that. I mean, we play the game so much that that's just second nature. It's just that's happening without really thinking much about it. I'm watching raid frames, I'm watching the positioning of people, I'm watching timers and things like that. So my mind's kind of like on 3 or 4 different things at once and things like that. So to an extent, yeah, I would say that your situational awareness is probably at a higher demand at a raid leader position than anything else in the raid, but that's not to downplay other people's, situational awareness. But you definitely have the most stuff. You should have the most stuff going on. No one else should be required to pay attention to those type of things, because that's if you only have one person doing it instead of like 5 people doing it, because it's going to impair whoever's doing it. I don't care if it's somebody that thinks they can do it without impairing themselves. If they can, cool. You need to put that brain power towards doing something else. Like, if you're playing a DPS, your job is to stay, you do your job, which is stay alive, do whatever raid assignments you have, and pump out the maximum damage. It's not that person's job to pay attention to whether or not someone needs a B-res, whether or not, I mean, obviously, unless you're playing like a Warlock or a Druid or something like that. But, I mean, those are just things that go into that. Like I said, same level of expectations. You need to make sure everybody in the raid understands that, like commitment level and all that, just tying into that again. Like you referenced, I mean, I'm sure people have seen videos of me getting mad at people and whatnot, and I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not right 100% of the time. I try to be right more than wrong, obviously, but sometimes I let it get to me a little much. I try to. That's like an ongoing thing, me just trying to make sure that I'm staying as composed as possible, because, like I said earlier, I mean, I get really into it. I'm a real passionate person. I mean, I can promise anybody that they're not going to find somebody more dedicated and committed to doing to the success of their guild than what I am. And I'm not saying anyone else is less committed. I'm just saying that I would it's not possible to be more committed, you know what I mean? Because it's like every ounce of what I'm doing when we're in there raiding is fully 110% committed to making sure the guild is able to do everything that they can to get a boss down as soon as possible. Live on here, have fun, but at the same time remain serious. It's like a fine balance where I don't really know if you would be able to classify a raid environment on progression as fun, but there are, I guess, the reason I have like the have fun thing on there is probably between wipes or during the buffs and things like that. That's when people throw out the jokes and the jabs and the shots fired at like Affinity and Adele and things like that. But
Yeah.
During the polls, I don't think that there's any part of that that's, you have people that differ on opinion there. There are people that are like, oh, it's a game, it should be fun. People saw like Method's Lei Shin video where they were joking around in phase 1 or whatever. I mean, we kind of take it, and I'm not saying they don't have a serious approach, but I'm saying like, that's really stuff that we do that much. I mean, like when we're in there on progression, it's pretty much like full-time serious, like when the boss is pulled, from the time the boss is pulled until it's a wipe, it's, I expect everybody to pretty much be 110% like serious mode, it's not really, because I mean, anytime you have somebody that starts joking around, and it's different for other people, some people are able to function with it, some aren't, but, you don't want to detract from someone's focus level because somebody's just in there, trolling in the middle of a progression pull, and things like that. So discipline level comes into that very, very much so. Trying to think, without trying to go over any of the same stuff, anything I'm missing out. Pressure, I think that's another thing that some people don't really understand. Like, you need to be able to keep people calm under pressure. You know, and that means, I mean, obviously there's times where, you know, yelling something super quick, if it's super important, it needs to happen right then. You know, like, you know, paint something now, like, or something, or like, you know, a B-res, just, you know, somebody maybe tunneling on something, you know, yelling for a B-res. But at the same time, I mean, you guys can go back and watch some of the progression videos. A lot of the times near the end of the boss, or, you know, it's like you finally get to that point where you know it's going to be a kill very so shortly, as long as nothing goes wrong. You just try to be the, you know, the voice of calm that goes over everyone. It's just like, everybody chill, just do your job, and, you know, let's make it happen. So, I mean, like, I think actually the rod in kill, you can hear me say that at the near the very end, where it's just like, everybody relax, just, you know, keep doing what you're doing. You don't want people getting the kill boners where, you know, everybody starts losing their mind, you know what I mean, like taunting the wrong mob, or, you know, like something like that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
I mean, I could keep going, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Oh, one more thing is, like, keep an open mind. I know one thing as far as like being a raid leader, you don't want it. It may differ, I guess, for us than it does for a lot of guilds, because you don't ever want to be that person that's just like, you know, it's very hard. You've got to find the balance between putting your foot down and sticking with a strategy, and being closed-minded to the option of different strategies. Like, you want to always have that open in your mind, to where it's like, okay, well, that could actually happen. Do we want to change it and go for that? Like, you always need to entertain stuff like that, but at the same time, you're also the person who's responsible for deciding the strategy that you're going to go with. And like I said, the reason that may be different is because, you know, there are no videos, you know what I mean, like things like that. So you're kind of sealing the guild's fate a lot of the times if you end up picking a strategy and that strategy ends up being the wrong one. So you got to be very, you know, good at making those decisions. I would say on a consistent basis, you know, we're able to do that pretty well, but there's always, it seems to be that one fight that we just end up making the wrong decision on, and you can't power through it. And, you know, whether that's Sha Fear, you know, Lei Shin, or what have you, you know, it ends up playing a huge part in the outcome. So that's definitely a huge part, I would say, for anybody that's aspiring to be a raid leader, or just trying to, that already is one and trying to improve themselves, is, you know, you need to be able to keep an open mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Amy said he had a little bit more on the end of that too. Did you have something else?
So, I mean, as far as like the guild leading aspect of it,
Yeah.
I was just going to talk about that real quick.
Sure.
So I guess the number one thing as far as a guild leader is you have to have like thick skin. You have to, you know, every day you log on to, you know, fires that you have to put out. Like, you know, even today I logged into something that I didn't want to have to deal with. But, you know, the crappy thing about being a guild leader, and also the important thing about being a guild leader, is that you have to make a lot of difficult decisions, and you have to be willing to make those decisions. And when you make those decisions, you need to, you know, put the guild first. And, you know, the people might not be as important in that decision. You need to look out for the guild. You need to look out for keeping most of your guild happy so you can do well during progression. And so that entails, you know, doing a lot of, you know, different things, like, you know, which people to get rid of, saying no to certain requests, you know, choosing who you want to promote or choosing who you want to demote. And I've been guild leading for about 8 years now, and the one thing that I had to learn over time, at the beginning, it was very difficult to say no. And you have to be able to say no to you know, whatever it is. A lot of times you'll try to keep everybody happy, and you just can't do that. It's just not possible. You know, there are so many, you know, different personalities, and so you have to be willing to say no to things. You have to be able to manage, you know, 30 to 50 different personalities, and they're probably going to be clashing during raid, and it's gonna, you know, it's going to be very difficult. But you have to be able to manage that. And I guess, you know, it feels like you need like a PhD in psychology sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely know where you're coming from there.
yeah. So, you know, you have to be available after raids and before raids, to address all these issues. You know, sometimes people might be having a difficult time in real life or a difficult time in raid, and you have to be available to talk to them because, you know, at the end of the day, if you care about your guild success, you care about your raiders. So, you know, you have to make yourself available, and you have to try to fix those issues. And I guess the number one thing you have to remember is that you're going to have successes as a guild, and you're going to have failures, and you need to be able to address those appropriately. And you know, the way that you address those is really going to depend on the situation. And the last thing, and I'm kind of going to talk about this later in the morale and focus section, is you really have to be able to get rid of toxic people. And there are just people who are toxic to guilds. You'll pull up their WoW track, and they've been in 30 different guilds, and there's probably a reason for that, and that's because they're toxic. And I'll kind of go over what toxic is, but a lot of the time people will keep people around just because they're skilled, or they provide some type of service. But at the end of the day, it's not worth keeping those people around. Your guild is actually going to do better if you get rid of those people. And I'll kind of cover the toxicity part later on.
Sure, no, definitely. It's all really good stuff. I mean, there's tons of. It's hard to really put. When I was designing this episode and the topics I was putting on here, it was kind of hard to not find a whole lot of overlap on things that really matter to put in this show. And then there's lots of little points that you really just can't get into unless you do it, or unless you know someone that does this, because there's so many. There's a lot more work than you think is put into this. I've actually tried to figure out where the video game part of the game ends in this regard, to where like almost a job mentality comes from it. Not in the way that it's like a job, go into work in the morning, but it's the guild, the leadership that you need, and the management skills that you evolve and grow over time. Like our real world, like dealing with people in a game is no different than dealing with your staff at work. If you own control a staff at work, so there's not a whole lot of difference in there. It's just one is in front of a computer screen and one is actually in real life when you're dressed up or whatever else have you. So there's a lot to take away from that, and tons of good information. Thank you guys very much for that. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the whole job perspective, I think it really does. There's a big difference between the skills required to be a raid leader and then a guild leader. I feel like the job kind of portion is more applicable possibly to raid leading. That's when things are a little bit more serious. But I feel like guild leaders have to really understand, socially how a guild should function. Not only are they dedicating tons of time, effort, money, and, they're just putting their heart into it. It's definitely, they're going to have to know who's in their guild. They're going to have to deal with players. It's not as simple as, sorry, you screwed up on that fight, one too many times. We're going to have to sit you for someone else. I mean, when it comes to a guild setting, I think it requires a different set of skills, which is why this is such a broad topic, and why, raid leading and guild leading, they both require some kind of similarities, but at the same time, I do feel like they do require additional things. Like, you could be a raid leader, but it's also hard to be guild leader on top of that. So I think that's worth mentioning, and that's probably why we're having issues with some overlap with the topics, because it's deeply involved in both, although they are a little bit different as well.
Yeah, I mean, going on the point that like Rig separated himself with that, right off the bat, that he raid leads, and they have Galax as their guild leader. But then on the flip side, in a different little spec, once you drop down into the upper crust, it seems that I know that Amy has a lot on his plate to deal with, but it seems like you can handle that with your responsibilities pretty well so far, right? I mean, you tackle it. You have people that help you. Obviously, you have your officers and your friends that help you with that kind of stuff. But it definitely is, in some regards, makes the game a lot more tedious and stressful than it should be. But in the end result, though, it all really works out, right? It's a lot of work to put into it. But
it's rewarding at the end, when you do well, and when you don't do so well, it's not as rewarding. But
I think the biggest, or did I cut you off there? Did you have something else?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, kind of piggybacking on what you were just, Bay was talking about right there. Like, I would say the number one difference for me from going from, like, my old guild duality, then Forlorn Legacy, and then Blood Legion, I mean, that's really the only 3 guilds I've ever been in. Like, that's it, you know what I mean? Like, other than, like, your starter guilds when you're messing around with some friends, right, when you start playing the game or whatever. But, like, and I think a lot of this, and the reason it ties into the guild/raid leader aspect of it is because, you have, whether it's 30, 35, 40 people, however many you have on your roster, the difference that I'm pointing out is just the fact that, like, once you have a group of people that want to be there, it makes a huge difference, because, like, those type of people, they police a lot of the little things themselves. Like, they're going to clean up a lot of the, dumb stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to worry about, fixing every single problem. Like, it's for lack of a better description, I mean, it gets to the point to where things somewhat run themselves, you know what I mean? Like, people are helping each other out outside of raids. You don't have to be going around as a raid leader, making sure people understand this about the fight. You know, if somebody's having issues or talking to somebody else in the guild and everything like that, you know, everybody's helping each other out because everybody wants to be there and everybody wants to be successful. And you don't want to have that person that just shit who is just like, oh, I'm going to show up and I'll learn at whatever pace I learn. I'm not going to put any extra effort into it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to have people like that. So I definitely think that, you know, make sure that you're surrounded by as many people as you possibly can. I'm not saying that, you know, our guild doesn't have turds. You know, we definitely have people that are turdish, for lack of a better word, that more turdish than they should be. But you know, as a general whole, I would definitely say that it's, you know, that's the biggest difference is people that are, you know, wanting to be there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's so many little different things to manage in a guild, and we have a part with the toxic people coming up here in a minute. But I wanted to know. But yeah, Jenni wants to
History.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
let's
I
jump on
want
the
to know the
history
history.
first.
I want to know a little backstory about the guilds. You know, just kind of short and sweet how the guild got started. What was the motivation? You know, was it a group of friends and you had common interests, or was it pre-existing? And you know, what's the story behind that? So, I
Riggs is
guess
laughing.
Amy.
Are we going with Riggs first
Oh,
or Amy first?
oh
No,
well,
no,
I don't know. I want to
I'm
know why
laughing at
Riggs
what
was
the guy said
laughing.
I'm laughing at what the guy said in chat. Turdish and
Oh.
whole used in the same sentence. 10 out of 10 would use in
Oh,
public.
would use in public.
I think a lot of people like your your weird made up words. I think that's great though.
Very
'Cause, you know,
quotable.
Dumbacity.
very
Dumbacity is
creative.
another
Oh
one.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But
But you know, just kind of in short, the backstory of you know the guild and kind of how it came to be. So I'm gonna ask Amy first.
So our guild was founded back in Manila, and it was just basically a bunch of friends that wanted to play together. And you know, we started raiding, you know, the MC, Blackwing Lair, AQ40, and you know, we started Nax, but at that point, I like wasn't really 100% committed into the guild leading slash raid leading thing, so I just like had enough, and I was like, screw this, I'm not gonna raid anymore or guild lead anymore. So we broke up at that point. But then, you know, everybody was like, well, this sucks. So we came back, and we did decently during BC, you know, clearing everything around like US 50th. And then I had to, you know, go to grad school, so couldn't really, you know, commit 100%. Then once I came back, you know, during Wrath, we started off at like US 100th. We were pretty horrible, and you know, had paladins that were like mailing bosses for mana and not doing
yes,
anything else.
old school Moonkin style right there.
Yeah. And you know, we went from that to our
I'm
current.
let me go melee the boss. I'll be right back.
That was
Um,
a thing. That was a thing.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it was a good time.
yeah.
Yeah, and so basically we just you know, looked at every single tier and saw what we could do better, and yeah, we rose over the last kind of 4 years, and we're hoping to do that every single tier.
Definitely.
Very cool. About you, Riggs? What's the
Um,
story behind Blood Legion?
Did that
you would
sound
like
like it
to share?
had some malice behind it? What about you, Riggs? Like,
Oh whoa, that was
Jenni,
not
no.
malice, dude. I'm sorry. I'm not.
How did-
always
how did
give
your
me a
guild
hard
come
time.
about?
This is
Yeah.
nothing new. But
gosh.
yeah.
anyways, she's probably giving me a hard time because I would give her a hard time during Lation progression. I would
Mhm.
tell Rob with every time I would see her make a mistake on her stream, I would message him with what she messed up. But anyways, how the guild started. I can't really. I'm not qualified to comment on that because Blood Legion is a guild that has been around since day one of WoW, and I'm pretty sure if one of the Method guys is in chat, I'm not sure. I think they may be as well. I think we are both like day one guilds from the launch of the game, which is, if they're not, that would make us the only one. But I think that they are. But anyways, I mean, either way, I mean, like for even both guys, I mean, that's a huge feat considering how much shit a guild has to go through on a tier by tier basis, and now we're at what, tier 15 or 16 or whatever, like and just the fact that I think the guild's pretty much been through like 3 different leadership regimes in the past. I know the first guy that made it was Z Extreme, and him and Ararat and Ares. I don't know if any one of you guys know these names, or some people in chat might, but Then after that, it was pretty much Ararat. Then Zonker was in there, and then Zonker's now the current GM. And I joined in Wrath of the Lich King, and ended up when Ararat was stepping down, they needed somebody to, I guess, pick up raid leading or whatever, and that's kind of how that happened. So, I mean, the guild's just kind of been around for ever. I mean, literally, and I think it actually started in Warcraft 3 for some reason. I think that's, or
Oh wow.
Warcraft, one of the
Yeah.
previous games is where it actually started. I mean, that's what I say. I don't really know the absolute details of outside of what happened prior to the day one of WoW being created. So
Yeah. Yeah, we just wanted to bring up. I know it was a point we wanted to put in here in the middle to break up the in-depthness. It's just people, because some people don't know where the guilds came from, right? Some people just like get on and find a guild and that's where you go. Like I can't even really speak. I know Chris has been around since '06, and we've been around for a long, long time. But I've only been with them now for just before this expansion even started. So I feel like the same way. I don't have a whole lot to talk about like where we came from. I'd have to really put that to Sam. But yeah, it's interesting to see where you guys came from. Before WoW even came out is definitely a thing too, because those you have an even longer like growth period that you've been around for that long. You have a big footprint, and that's awesome. Not a lot of people know the little bit of insides, but to move on from the fuzzy stuff to right back into, I know we were talking about toxic people and quelling the demons because I wanted to make sure that was a point. And that's why I put the breakup there, yeah, because like there's always the good side of raid leading and guild leading and like where it comes from, the rewards and the awesome stuff with your people and growing as a guild and downing bosses and feeling awesome together and nerd boners and all that good stuff. But there's also the bad side. So what do you guys do when you want to handle toxic players, and what do you deal with like multiple wipes that you know are like player oriented and not like encounter based? Like what happens with you when you have to fight the raid demons that come out now and then in World of Warcraft? Amy, let's go with you first.
So I guess the first thing is like identifying whether a player is toxic or not. So kind of jotted down some things that like what causes a person to be toxic, and this might vary from guild leader to guild leader or raid leader to raid leader, but I put down basically any players that cause disruption frequently during raids between other people. So like if you have somebody fighting all the time, they're always combative, that would be a toxic player. Anybody that shows up to raid and has like a really poor attitude all the time, or like brings the team down all the time. Like one of the examples is we had a guy in our guild that would log on to Mumble, and like you could see the entire attitude of the guild just like become super crap and like super demoralized. That would be a toxic player. Somebody that's always complaining about assigned tasks or the strategy or the loot. Constant complainers would be a toxic person. And any player that doesn't give a shit is a toxic player, I would say. Those people you don't want on your raid. They're not going to give you 110%, and you just got to get rid of them. So as far as dealing with those people, basically what I found is if you think somebody's toxic, you just have to get rid of them, and it might be a difficult decision, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a better thing for your team. And the example I like to use here is on Heroic Riggnaros, the one boss where we spent 463 attempts. We probably had like the worst toxicity in the guild at that time, and getting rid of those toxic people literally got us to kill the next day. So it can make a massive difference in terms of your guild's progression, and you really have to step back and take a look at your players and see what impact they're making on your team and whether it's positive or negative. And if you think it's negative, you got to be right, but getting rid of them will most likely benefit you greatly, I'd say. And one of the things I put down here is, no matter how a skilled player might be, if they're purely toxic, you just got to get rid of them and just call it a loss. And one of the strategies that I would suggest as far as dealing with getting rid of that player and having that loss is having your really good, positive, loyal players have geared alts that can step in and just do the job. And even though you just lost somebody, you're still able to continue. You're still able to class stack. The raid just keeps going.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds really good. What about you, Riggs?
I don't know. I mean, it's actually a tough question because I guess it depends on what you want to define someone as being toxic, because I know, like, for me at least, there's definitely a lot of shit that has to be shoveled to an extent, of just dealing with the bullshit, because it's just part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that there is a parallel universe that exists where you're going to have 35 people whom you're going to not have somebody that kind of has, I guess, not necessarily a poor I guess that's what I'm saying. It just depends on the level of how toxic the person is. I mean, if it's to the point to where they're obviously impeding the guild's progress, I mean, that it should never really get to that point. Like, the way that I kind of see it, I mean, like, pretty much from the application process to the point to where someone's in the guild. I guess that may be why it's a little bit different for us, because when we interview people, we try to do as thorough of a job as we can of screening people beforehand, so we kind of expect what we're getting. Maybe not, maybe we don't understand. I mean, obviously we don't understand from a player skill standpoint because it's a verbal interview, but you get a pretty good understanding as much as you can in a hour or two window about someone's mentality, mindset, attitude, demeanor, work ethic, and things like that. And I mean, those are all type of things that, and like I mentioned earlier in the show, we don't have the 25 best people in the in the U.S. or in the world, but we have one of the best chemistries. Obviously the best chemistry of the 25 men in the U.S. Like, we have people that work well, that well together, because you're not going to be able to just pick up 25 of the best players and expect results, because that's not what it's about. It's about finding people that are able to coexist with one another, on top of interacting with each other on a because what it all comes down to is progression, and it's how well these people are going to work together when they're with each other 14 plus hours a day, 14 to 16 hours a day for those 7 to 14 days of progression. You know what I mean? And if somebody was toxic to the point to where they're impeding the guild's progress, I personally just don't think it would get to the point of them being in the guild during that time frame. I mean, like, our trial status in the guild, it's not even defined. I mean, you're basically a trial until we feel like putting your vote up. You know what I mean? And then people vote about whether or not they feel you should be in the guild on the on the member forums or whatever. But it's just I do agree with Amy, though, as far as if it's to the point where someone's impeding your progress, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a standard that a guild needs to have, and if it's to the point to where that's jeopardized, I mean, you pretty much just have to cut the cord.
Yeah, you can't. I know from my example, the only people that I can really, or example I have for a toxic player, was we had a guy that would like to throw the football and the soccer ball at people that were eating their 300 food, back when 300 food was like the first starting out kind of deal, and just waste people's money and time. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like it wasn't like a fun trolley thing. Like, it was a very consistent, all the time, every boss fight, the person, I mean, it happened to me a lot. It happened to people that happened to as well, like, they kick the ball at them, and it's stupid that it still does that, it interrupts you. But and it just,
party bombs, that was another one.
Party
like the party
bombs.
bombs from
like, it's that stuff is funny now and then, but when it's a consistently trollish action, it just snowballs out of control, because not only does it slow down your progression, slow down your wipe recovery, it then makes the person that it keeps happening to frustrated, which then can impact the actual performance during the encounter. It's a huge snowball effect, and you can't let that kind of stuff happen. Even the little pinpricks can really cause
Well, that's what it comes down to, is exactly the little pinprick, because, like, I mean, this is kind of like off WoW topic, but, like, in 2006 or whatever, when I was in Iraq, I mean, you're living around these people literally 24/7. It's not just 14, it's literally 24/7. And I remember actually getting in a fight with the guy that slept next to me, because I mean, not like an actual full-blown brawl, but like, shoves and small punches or whatever, because his headphone music coming from his iPhones, or like his iPad earphones, like, I could hear it in my sleeping bag or whatever. And I mean, just the littlest thing can irk you when you're around the same people for so often, and you got to be able to, obviously deal with things like that, in a healthy manner, and not let it get to the point where, it's becoming a detriment.
Yeah. You can't.
I think the worst kind of toxicity, particularly, is like attitude toxicity. Not just like they're trying to fudge meters, or they're dotting everything on Dark Animus, and they're killing ads that shouldn't die because they want to look good on the meters. Like, I mean, you know, there's the damage toxicity where they're doing scummy things, and then there's the attitude toxicity where they plant a bad seed in raid chat, or you know they say something, or you know they just have this very bad mentality during progression. I think honestly, you know, having scummy DPS or healers or tanks, you know, that can make you wipe quite a number of times. But having people with really bad attitudes that breaks raid morale, I think that can destroy a guild. I don't know. So
No,
I think
definitely.
that's definitely something to look out
One
for.
one rotten apple spoils the barrel. That is real in actual physical real life, and can be definitely a thing that happens in the game too, because you have to. All these people are. You're under so much stress, especially when you're competing on a level like these guys are, where you can't have, you know, people that start avalanches because you start with a little thing. You can all be on the same page there. So definitely, but
I think on a better note, we should talk about maybe dealing with failure, and you know, scummy people won't try and correct failure, but Riggs, what's the best way to deal with failure, and you know whether it be kind of failure that's unavoidable or failure that is someone's mistake. You know, what's the best attitude and what's the best way to approach it?
I don't think that you can say one way is better than the other. I think there are dozens of different ways that you can accomplish the goal. You know, like how to be an effective leader. It's not limited to any one specific, method of making it happen. I mean, you could be a very strict discipline approach. You could be more of a laid back, relaxed approach, or you could have like people that talk to people. I mean, it's whatever works for you and your guild is what it comes down to. But I'm pretty sure people have seen like it's the methods that I use, which is I get like I'm more of a believer in everyone is equal. If there's a mistake that's made, it's addressed on the spot and move on. And as long as it's not something that's consistently happening, it really shouldn't turn into that big of an issue. But if the same person keeps dying to the same thing over and over and over, obviously it starts turning into an issue to where it's like, okay, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's like, why do you keep dying to this? You know what I mean? Like you've died 3 times in 4 pulls to the same mechanic or to a different mechanic. It's like, get your stuff together. But sick. I was trying to actually think of an example there, and it like completely slipped my mind. But
totally fine. I actually oopsie daisied on that too, and your audio bounced off for like a second, so hopefully it didn't cut anything important. But yeah, something was brewing there definitely.
I think I was just going to comment on, or I was talking about, people making different mistakes or whatever. But I think the number one thing for me is I mainly care about just people taking responsibility. That's what it was. Just people have to take responsibility for what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's like it's okay if you made a mistake. It is fine. Everybody makes mistakes. But the number one thing, and this is like a weekly battle that happens just constantly, is just you have to ensure that people understand that taking responsibility for yourself and your actions is more important than anything. Because even on farm, even like, people watch my stream a lot of times, they'll be like, oh my God, why is this guy getting mad on a boss that they just kill every week? It's like, you fight like you train, train like you fight, play like you practice, practice like you play, however you want to spin it. Like every time that you go in there, you should be, like I said, we only raid 6 hours a week right now. And during those 6 hours, that's the only time you're going to be able to keep that edge, because it's not like you're just going to be able to not do anything for 3 to 4 months, and then all of a sudden progression hits, and then you expect your guild to flip a light switch and perform at the top level. You know what I mean? You have to keep that, keep that edge and keep it sharp. And to do that, I mean, you can't be complacent. And the reason that it's such a big deal for people to take responsibility for their actions is because whenever you're in there on progression, if you have somebody that's just used to passing the buck, where it's like, oh, I didn't, it's not my fault I died to that static shock. I thought they were going to soak. Or it's not my fault that so-and-so happened. I thought, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of people that just try and pass the buck. It's like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. It's like, at the end of the day, you just need to take responsibility for it. It does, like, it's very few times is it going to be someone else's fault that you died. And if it is, you just say that. And as long as it's not something that just sounds like some bullshit. I mean, it's good for anybody that understands the that understands raiding, especially at the point that we do, or Amy's guild does, I'm sure. It's just like you can pretty much spot the bullshit right off the bat if somebody's trying to like feed a bogus excuse as to why they died or why a mistake happened. And on progression, that can be the difference between needing to make a strat change and not making a strat change, because time is the number one currency during progression, because that's what matters more than anything. Because like I said, every one of the top guilds is going to be able to kill something. It's just who can kill it first, and you don't want to waste pulls to the same mistakes over and over, and you don't want to waste pulls when, if something needs to be changed, you need to know, like if that person is dying because of flaw in the strat, you need to change the strat. But if they're dying because they're just being bad, that's why it comes down to it being important for them to take responsibility for that. Because if it's not if the strat's working, you don't need to change something. They just need to play better, and that's why they just need to be like, okay, my bad, I just need to clean it up, and you don't have to worry about changing something. But that that's why it's that important, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. I was actually gonna bring that up just in like a passing thing, is that people have seen you're putting people on blast, highlights from your stream or videos and stuff like that, which is definitely a way to handle it, because if everyone is on the same footing where anyone can be put on blast like that, it doesn't eliminate any like person from being handheld or cupcaked or talked to in whispers. And if you're brought up to that stage light, I guess, where you're put in front of everyone else on that like pedestal, like you're being looked at because you screwed up multiple times, it hopefully will change that person's attitude toward that and make them focus a lot more than like sending whisper like, don't stand in the stuff please, is like a really soft touch. But sometimes you need to put people on blast and correct the errors, and if you can't, then maybe the guild's not for you. People, I saw it in chat room a bunch about people talk about the Space Jam video as like the biggest one I think that I noticed, but I mean it has to happen sometimes.
I mean it doesn't. That's why I want to reiterate so many times, like,
Yeah.
it's just, it depends on the person, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people just think that I'm like this person who thinks that my way is the only way and blah blah blah. It's not that, man. It's just the way that I do things. That's not changing, but I'm not like in denial to the point where I think that there can't be other methods to doing things. Like, you can definitely get your point across without being an asshole, for lack of a better term, but that is the way that I choose to deal with it. But I mean, it's not the way that there may be people that are watching that are trying to be like, well, I want to push my guild. You don't have to be very strict, abrasive, and disciplined. You can take a more friendly approach to it and accomplish the same thing. If you're able to do that, you just need to work on what is going to produce the best results for you and your guild, because it may work the best for you, but if you're going to try and implement that in your guild and the friendly approach isn't working, people are just going to walk over you. Maybe you need to try a more disciplined and abrasive approach. I mean, it depends on the person and the guild.
No, absolutely.
I definitely agree there.
Yeah.
Like in our guild, for example, we do kind of like a sliding scale. Like if somebody screws up something, once or twice, they get constructive criticism. But if somebody is like continually screwing up a mechanic, they're going to get called out, sometimes pretty harshly, because the way that I take it is it's like personally disrespectful to me that this person isn't fixing their issue or whatever, because I'm there putting in 110%. Why aren't they? So at the point where you get where you're making the same mistake over and over again, it's like, well, either fix it or get out of the raid, because you're being disrespectful to all the 24 other people in there. So I think being professional and courteous definitely works for the first couple of screw ups, but then after that, if somebody's not getting the point, it's definitely a good idea to kind of get more stern, get more strict, and call them out. Yeah,
eventually to a point you can't continuously handhold people. You need to I use the term put on blast like lightly. I don't mean like freaking yell at them. Right. Sometimes you need to yell at people. Maybe they can't, maybe they just don't get it through. But there's definitely a stepping stone ladder to people, and like the end of the stepping stone is just you fall off the ladder and then you're out of the guild, because you can't get dealing with that sometimes. And that hopefully is a rare occurrence, but it's different for every guild. And it's different for who controls the guild, who runs it, and who manages it. Yeah, everyone has their own little way of working that around. So, but we talked about this a little bit earlier. I didn't want to go into too much of it because we don't know if it's a real thing or not yet. But the public eye and the I guess the world stage, I said, is a big deal for the people that are in the spotlight, like the top of the pack, the leaders of the PvE progression system here. And Riggs talked about it earlier that we just had our first U.S. world first with Empress, the first one ever. right? It's been a very EU-dominated scene. There's been like splatters of other guilds in there too. A little bit of the, I guess the Asian side of the game, and our first one ever. So what is that? What do you guys do, and how do you guys deal with being in that limelight? And what kind of message, and how do you communicate that to the community to stay in that sort of like, because you're in the, you know, for our microcosm of the game, you kind of have paparazzi in the different websites, interview places, and kind of like us. That what do you guys do outside of your own personal stuff to make sure that, you know, keeps a good positive eye for the guild you guys run?
It's definitely a learning experience, like for us, and yeah, I think it's the first U.S. world first since Onyxia. It wasn't actually the first one ever. It was
Okay, sorry,
like the
so yeah.
third
Onyxia,
one ever.
yeah.
Since Onyxia and Vanilla. It was the first one since Vanilla. Before that, it was Paragon, Insidia, Nihilum, and
Yeah.
like Stars and Method.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting into your question would be, yeah, it's kind of like a learning process, and I mean, we've definitely taken the bumpy road as far as learning what, you know, type of things that you definitely need to, because I mean, the higher ranking that you get, that's one thing I've definitely noticed is, I mean, like in Forlorn Legacy or back like when, you know, I first joined the guild or whatever, when we were like, you know, a little lower ranked or whatever. I mean, it's not that many people seem to care about what was going on, whether it was the, you know, inappropriate jokes that were being said on Mumble, but I mean, it just gets to the point to where people are making, you know, threads and anything that happens, people try to make a bigger deal about it. Like, and I mean, you just kind of got to be aware of things like that and just try and make sure that you're not making the guild look dumb, more or less. And I mean, I mean, I'm not, you know, you don't have to like rehearse or anything. It's just more or less just be mindful of what you say, because you know people are going to be, you know, listening / watching. So I mean, that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Amy, anything to add?
Well, I guess on our end, you know, in the U.S. at least, it feels like nobody really looks at any other guilds other than like the top three as far as like the public eye. So we've been pretty, you know, pretty under the radar, I guess, as far as like, you know, having to manage image or any of that. So I don't really have a lot of input there.
Well, then I guess in the same way that what do you guys see from the top guilds then? Like, how do they, for your perspective then, since you guys are in the enough of the pack to look at them and watch what they do to learn how to get better, like what do you guys see from them that really helps you guys out as a guild and help you progress in the top of the stage here at the US side of things?
Well, so I'll give you one example here. Is one of the guilds that we really look up to is Midwinter. Just the way that their communication is set up. We really like the way that they communicate, and like just the appropriate information goes out at the appropriate time. You know, their raid leader is exceptional at you know, managing not only the raid but also the raid's attitude, and you know, just a very enjoyable raid atmosphere that, you know, they have even during progression. So we definitely like look up to them as far as like, you know, where we want to be as far as atmosphere goes, as far as communication goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much speechless when it comes to, you know, the way that they communicate, and I'm a pretty huge fan. So
Yeah, I guess that to our credit down here, I guess even with you guys, you talk about that, Amy, like being, you know, under the top of the pack there, is there's a lot to look at from them, from logs to kill videos to their personal streams to how things are run, depending on the stream too, because not all of you guys have like your mumbles on, so you can't always hear the atmosphere, but some of them do. And I definitely understand what you're talking about too, and each one is handled a little differently, and you can take from those different little aspects of what they do. So it's interesting to see, because the time differentiating is from them putting in so much more time versus like, you know, our schedules are, you know, closer to what Jenni and I do. So it's a lot to take from that, and it's almost hard to really kind of encompass all of that to bring that into your guild, because you don't have that either background or history or commanding leadership or time to play into it. So you got to kind of do what you got to do with the resources you're given. But yeah, definitely. So then with the rest of that though, I know this might apply more to rigs, but have there been any like achievements or milestones you guys have really broken with being and with what Blood Legion has done? I know you had the live raid back at BlizzCon. Was it 2010, right? 2011? Yeah. So like what
2011,
else? Yeah. So what else have you guys done, or what have you guys like broken into in the PvE scene as Blood Legion really?
I don't know as far as like rigor. I know we we're the world first guild to get all the guild achievement points initially, not since they added the new ones. I think there was a bit of small screenshot on MMO for that, but yeah, live raid, we won that. The Dragon Soul race that Athene put together in 2012. It was us, Paragon, Stars, and Exorcist. We came in second there. Stars actually beat us by like 30 seconds. Paragon was like 15. That was like the raid Paragon did. I think, yeah, they came in third, like 15 seconds behind us, and then Exorcist was behind them or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, somebody that actually did stats, I would be interested to see the most like consecutive U.S. first, like just from a regional standpoint, like what's the most consecutive U.S. first boss kills in any stretch. I think we would be pretty much up there because I think we've gotten pretty much every U.S. first boss kill since the After Firelands for the most part. I think Exodus actually got one or two during Throne of Thunder. I think they got like Tortos and something. But outside of that, I mean, we've gotten every U.S. first boss kill since then.
Yeah, I think you brought that up too.
Firelands, yeah.
We brought that up in the pre-show. I don't know if there's any way to find all that out. To find all like, I would love a stat or like an infograph of that. So if someone out there makes an infograph, if one of you are awesome at making infographs, you should look that up and make one for EU and US on like every boss and when it was killed by whom, like what guild-wise. That would be a really cool graph to have. Reddit would eat that up.
That would be
all
cool.
That. Yeah.
You had some cool illustrations too, like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be really cool. I don't know if I don't have the time to make an infograph like that, but if someone wants to, then jump all over that.
It's open, and please submit it to the website too if you do make an infograph or if you have time.
Yeah. But I think you should take the last little bit here, and then we'll move on to viewer questions.
Alrighty, so we're just kind of move into the leadership soapbox or whatever you want to call it. Is there anything you want to add? Any shout-outs, opinions, or comments that you guys would like to add to the discussion while we're still kind of coming out of the meat and potatoes of raid leading and guild leading as well?
Meat and bones.
Meat and bones?
I said meat and bones. He thut it was weird.
No, it is weird. I was making fun of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That reverse. Yeah, but is there anything else you guys want to like help out that we didn't mention that you guys wanted to let everyone else know? This is your time. Who wants it first? Fight over it. Rochambeau?
Rick can go first.
Okay.
I don't know. My only thing, I guess, to wrap it up would just be, there's a lot of stuff that, people misconceive. My dog's going with a toy again, but yeah, it's don't judge a book by its cover and don't believe everything that you hear. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, and there's a lot more to what happens in hardcore raiding. And the reason that I'm saying that is because the talent pool is like it's like a gradual process. You know what I mean? Like people that the people that are going to be raiding in top end guilds are going to be people, a year from now or 2 years from now are going to be people that are maybe just now getting into raiding. And, I'm just trying to make sure that everybody, there could be people that are watching this stream right now that could end up, applying to Promethean or Method or Blood Legion or whatever. And I need to just trying to make sure that you guys know, there are a lot of things that people think about, like, top-end guilds, or there are a lot of misconceptions about that type of thing that, just find somebody and ask, man. That's what I'm getting at. Just don't believe everything that you hear, and don't judge a book by its cover, because, the internet can be a very, I don't really know the word I'm looking for there, but it can be a very, misinterpreted place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It definitely can be. And there's a whole lot you have to... I mean, I know Spark is here, and he's going to laugh at me for saying this, but even when it comes down to the tools that you are given from the community, make sure you know how you're using them, and make sure you're taking away from it the right stuff that is pertinent to you, and don't just take a lot of things for face value, because just like what Riggs said, there's lots that that people make up. And I mean, the happy birthday diarist comes to mind from Reddit for League of Legends, right? Like, it's his birthday every day, and that started as just this weird rumor and misconception on there, and it's now like it's a field of fire all over the place. Like, it's a running joke. So you can't always believe everything, right? So just mobs and
And
minions.
it's not his birthday every day?
No, it's not his birthday every day.
What?
No, I know. Amy, do you have anything else?
I guess just as far as like when you're getting into, high-end rating, just, be careful with the guilds you join. Like, don't end up, some of the things that look horrible on guild apps is somebody that's been in like 30 guilds or something. So, really do the research on your guilds that you want to join, look at their streams, and kind of know what you're getting into, and really be ready to dedicate the time, and, just make sure that you're committed before you even begin to proceed, because a lot of the time, we'll get people who just aren't committed or just don't know what endgame rating is like. They don't know the time commitment or the skill required or any of that. So, and I think Greg's suggestion there is just ask is like more than it's pretty brilliant. I'd say just find somebody and ask them what it's like. Ask them what's needed of you, and do your research basically.
Yeah, that's one thing I guess I can close on too here is that a lot of people think that just because you guys are at like the top of the pack, you might not be as reachable or communicative for some reason. That's a weird misconception too, is like, well, how do I talk to Sparkugs? He's like the best warlock god grandfather ever. But like, you could literally probably just message someone in his guild or try to talk to him either through his Twitter and stuff like that, and probably just answer you, right? Like, there's not this weird invisible shield that blocks the community from talking to these people. You can just talk to people. They're people too. Riggs isn't some like weird government issue robot that is so focused on WoW he doesn't care about the everyone else in the game. Like, that's not a thing, right? So just don't get too caught up in misconceptions or things you think are not real with these people. We're all just players too, just like you guys.
Yeah. I don't want to like talk too much about this, but one more thing kind of tie onto that is I see a lot of people, man, like a lot of people just go about it the wrong way. Like, a lot of people, when they're going to join a guild, like, you're more focused on, like, what happens is they go to a log for somebody's guild, they see someone's parses or whatever, and they're like, I'm better than that person. It's kind of like today's the current generation's mindset is like their number one like reaction to anything is they're just trying to tear people down. You know what I mean? Like, that's just their number one goal is like you don't want to be that guy. And the reason I'm saying that is like I cannot tell you how many times that I've seen people that are like, oh, I was, I'm better DPS than so and so. They'll like see our recount or SCADA on the stream, and you have people that are like, oh, I can do better numbers than that and things like that. And it's just when you're at a different rate, like just ball strats factor into that. Like take Lei Shin for example. You know what I mean? Like, no one like people that are going to be parsing on Lei Shin are people that are in guilds that just kill ball lightning slower. Like, when our ball lightning spawn, they die in less than like 2 GCDs a lot of the times. Like, they get gripped and they're literally, I'm doing good if I can get a second GCD off on them because they're dead so fast. And you have people that, and kind of the whole thing I'm kind of like build up the whole point here is it's just like little examples like that. You have people that walk around and they think that like that just parsing, it's not just about parsing. That's what I'm trying to like get across here is, if you guys are looking to be in a better guild, you need to take your mind a lot less on the parsing point. I understand that may be like your main source of motivation, whatever guild you're in. And I'm not saying numbers aren't important. Numbers are very important. But what's more important is the ability to be a reliable, consistent raider who makes the right decisions, plays to win, and things like that. Those are the things that are going to be making the difference, because I'll take somebody that does, 20K less DPS that's not going to be dead every pull, that is going to consistently put those numbers up, that I can rely on to do, outside, like, the person that's in, doing like clicking Magtheridon cubes, or is, driving the dragon on Kill Jaden. You know what I mean? It's like, you need to be a lot more focused on how to benefit the team better than, how to, be a better individual, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot more to being a person in a guild than just being numbers. If you want to be just numbers, you're probably playing the wrong game. This is a very social environment, and there's a lot of other little factors that I hope we've touched on, many of them tonight, that are, you know, much more important than just the numbers. So, so all right, then. Every episode of Final Boss is built up into sections, and the last section we do is viewer question-oriented stuff, right? So each episode we try to pick some of the best questions we have submitted to us. It's been spammed all night long. If you go right over here, I will show you again where you go. You go to FinalBoss.tv, and you can submit questions to us. You can go to FinalBoss.tv and go to the Ask a Boss section. Nice little form that we have built up there, that you can submit questions for each week's coming up shows. We usually tweet about it and post about it on Facebook prior to each episode, but if you have questions that are more generic that we can put in there that don't have like a focus on person, then you can just put them up there whenever you want. Or if you have ones that you know are coming up for the show we have, then definitely put those up there when we ask for them, or, you know, each week whenever you have, let me know what's coming on next week. And I will tell you all who's coming on the show next week when we get to that at the end of the show. But to move on to our questions.
I guess I will start the first question, and this is actually for you, Riggnaros. It's from Hateful from Zangermarsh, US. Question was, what was your earlier experiences like when you first started raid leading? Do you have any advice for raid leaders with a small roster, and how to promote pushing progression?
Well, I'll ask you to repeat the second part of that question, because right now I'm fixated on the first part of it, which was, well, when I first started raid leading, what was it like, and what type of adjustments and things like that. Actually, the whole way that when I started raid leading, it's kind of the way it came about. I'm trying to make sure I get all this together here.
Sure.
My guild leader / raid leader at the time was Drury. He actually ended up going to Vodka from the guild. This was Dual, not the current Dual. This is another rendition of that the same name, but he left, and then the guild was basically going to die, and, you know, somebody was just like, okay, well, you know, we need somebody to raid lead, or there's no real point in staying, because nobody really wanted to do it. And I had no idea what I was doing whatsoever. I didn't even really know that much about the game at the time, but I enjoyed the people that I was playing with, and, you know, I wanted to make sure that, you know, we stayed together or whatever. So I was like, whatever, I can try it, you know. And this is when I was still in the Marine Corps, pretty much like full time. So this was a very semi-casual guild, almost like full-blown casual. It was like, you know, 2 to 3 nights a week for a couple hours a night. But yeah, what I'm getting at is, when I picked it up, I had no idea what I was doing. It's just something that you have to have the desire to do, and to pick things up. Like, you know, the number one thing I would say to do is learn as much as you can, as far as like how things need to work, be able to have good situation awareness. I mean, that just goes to tie back into what we said at the beginning of the show, like, you know, what type of responsibilities does a raid leader have and have to deal with. I mean, all those can be listed. There's no point in going over those again. But I mean, it's just, the number one thing is just, you got to be committed, man, because it's a very tiring job a lot of the times, you know what I mean? Like, it's I guess the better way to put it, it's a very thankless job, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you're not going to receive a lot of praise from doing it. You're not going to, you know, you're not getting paid. You're not getting a benefit more than anyone else in the raid. You just have to want to do it. And yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. So I mean, learning other classes, what abilities they have, you know, understanding strats, how people devise strats, how to pick strats. I mean, all that type of thing. So watch videos, watch streams, ask questions. I mean, just be a sponge, man. Just soak it in. And what was the other part?
The other part was advice for, I guess, pushing progression. So how to promote that.
That's just something you need to sit down with your guild and ask everybody to get together and come to an agreement. How hardcore do we want to be? You know what I mean? Like, do you want to, you know, full-blown dick slam to the point to where it's, you know, 24/7 when the patch hits, or do you want to keep it the, you know, 2 to 3 nights a week, or, you know what I mean, or you can raid semi-hardcore, which is you raid 5, you know what I mean? It's just, you need to sit down with your guild and, you know, come up with a decision that meets everyone's, you know, decision, or maybe not everyone, because you're never going to make everyone happy, like I think Amy said that earlier, but you need to come up with something that you think is best for the group. And if there's only a few people that aren't on board, I mean, that's just something that they're going to have to deal with or leave. I mean, but you need to whatever the majority of your guild wants to do.
Yeah, definitely really good. Did you have anything to like tie into that, Amy, for your experience?
So I guess when I started, it was vanilla and nobody really knew what the hell they were doing. So
Well, yeah.
as far as a
No.
raid leader goes, you just kind of build that up over time. But if I had to take one thing and like tell you need to do this to become a better raid leader, and it's what Rick just mentioned, learn like everything you possibly can. You really should be able to play every single class. You should be able to log on to any one of your raiders and play their tune for them. And if you know that, you'll be a successful raid leader.
Yeah, just a lot of insider stuff like that. I know that might be different per guild, but that's definitely something that definitely helps you out. I mean, at least knowing what the other classes can do. I know at the beginning of Mist, when everyone had the new talents and the new spells and all this other crap, like you didn't know what everyone can do. Everyone had to learn all of that stuff. But the people that should be are the ones in charge, the ones running the show, because they need to know all that information. Uh-oh, are we getting dog time?
Dog time. Oh.
I gotta snipe him when he walks by.
So I'll get the second question built up here. If you want to read it out, Jenny, we'll go for that.
All right. So this is from Bathrobe from US Malfurion. The question is, what kind of healing comp are you going to be running for the majority of Siege fights? With Rest of Shamans getting nerfed again and Priests being weaker, what would make the most sense?
Yeah, this is kind of like I think a general question, because you guys have both had PTR testing. I know you have your healer balance, and I've seen Affinity on different healers each time he streams differently, so I don't know what you guys are going to be working on for your healer comps. What do you think going into this, Amy?
Well, Resto Druid seems extremely powerful at the moment, especially with the Legendary Cloak. I don't know whether that's going to get any type of nerf or whatever, but their healing is just absolutely ridiculous when combined with that Cloak. I think the Cloak makes up for like 15% of their healing or something. So definitely looking at running a lot of Resto Druids. As far as the other classes, I don't really see much difference from Throne to Siege.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't want to interrupt Riggs here, but oh, he stopped. What do you think healing
The
setup
dog is about to attack my Rammus hat, but the thing about healer, I don't know. Like right now, it's like way too early to tell because we haven't done 25-man testing yet, so
Okay.
too early to comment on it. And even if we did, I probably wouldn't say anything as far as like what we're planning on using or whatnot. But I'd say the best piece of advice I can give is just make sure you have diversity. You never want to have all your eggs in one basket, and as long as you have diversity, you're going to be able to adjust as needed. And if you're in a guild that doesn't really have that option, I mean, you're probably also not going to be trying to push for top kills, in which case, you know what I mean, by the time that you're going to have enough gear to do it with maybe a suboptimal comp. But yeah.
Okay. Definitely. And I want to actually leave the third question we had on the show notes here for after the show, for the post show, because it's very focused. I want to add this new one that I just put on here that I'll go with. It was submitted during the show, and I think it's really, really pertinent. We probably touched upon it, but I want to make sure it's drilled in there. It was submitted by Algorasan. I think that's pronounced right, but
it's Rob's Twitch.
Oh, is it? Well, okay. Well, he said that he wants to know that what is your number one pet peeve as a raid leader? Amy.
I'd say bullshit excuses. Just like admit that you screwed something up and move on. Like people who are in denial about screwing stuff up, like just drive me up the wall.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That'd be my number one pet peeve.
Riggs?
If I had to pick one, I don't know, man. That's hard.
You could rank them.
Okay, top 3 pet peeves.
Top 3, it would definitely be people's inability to take responsibility for their actions, consistently making the same mistakes, even if you are taking. I mean, because even if you're saying, "Oh, my bad," it's not making it any better if it's happening every pull. You know what I mean? And I would say those would definitely be the top 2, and probably the third is just being flaky, man. I mean, like all 3 of those are pretty equal as far as like shit that can get me pretty like mad pretty quick. It's just any of those 3. I mean, like somebody that's flaking, somebody that has excuses or somebody that's just being bad. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to clean. You pretty much, if you're somebody that has any one of those three things as a consistent issue for yourself, you need to check your stuff and get it fixed ASAP because, you're holding yourself back as well as the guild.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums that up. I don't think we can end on a better note than that. So, Amiyeable from Promethean. I'm actually going to bring up the proper final lower third feed. Thank you very much for being on the show tonight with us, sir. It's a pleasure. You can go follow his Twitter at Amiyeable. There is an I before the Y for whatever reason, which is, it's totally okay.
Yep.
But follow him on Twitter. His relevant other social media is right there. We have a costume change going on behind the scenes here. Riggnaros of Blood Legion, thank you very much for being on the... What is this? What's on your head right now?
It's my Snorlax hat.
Oh my god, that is the Snorlax hat. Riggnaros.com for all of his social networking needs. I'll wait for the chat to blow up on you real quick. Yep, there it is. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you very much for being on the show with us tonight, sir. It was awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing the show. It's awesome, and like I said, I hope you guys stick with it.
Absolutely. Jenni, not at PAX this week, still on the show with us. Thank you again for being here, Jenni. I think you will not be here with me next week, though, correct?
We'll see. I'm gonna see if I can find maybe a quiet corner at PAX. I'll try it. If I am there, I'll try and be streaming at the convention center. So we'll see about that. Hopefully you'll see me next week, but if not, you'll know where I am, so.
Perfect. I actually thought that was a pretty cool thing if we actually get you from PAX. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
see.
I'll definitely see what I can do about that. I mean, I have Friday, Saturday, and Monday tickets, just not a Sunday ticket, so I might just be in Seattle somewhere.
Yeah.
Streaming from there, so we'll see about that.
Yeah. And then back to me here. Let me turn this off. Oh my goodness, I gotta find a better way to do that. But Adam K, aka Bay, thank you very much for being with us tonight, guys. Again, there's a post-show after this, so you don't have to go anywhere. We're still going to be here answering some questions and hang out with you all. But every Sunday right here on FinalBoss.tv, on Twitch, it's been spammed all night. Go check out our social media. We have a Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. All of these go up YouTube. There will be audio-only versions in the future here once we get all the RSS and MP3 stuff for the audio-only stuff set up on the website and hosting. That is coming, so you can listen to just the audio feed. Otherwise, you can watch the archives on YouTube. Should be up tomorrow, no problem. Share it around to all of your friends and whatnot. And yeah, you guys are awesome. Mobs and Minions, thank you very much for being here. We will see you next Sunday. We will be joined by Magdalena of Something Wicked and Landsoul of Blood Legion to talk about strength melee DPS. And yes, there will be legendary cloak talk. I'm sorry in advance, but we have to talk about it from a melee DPS standpoint. So, yeah. We'll see you next week here. Everyone wave bye. Have a good night, everybody.
Good talk.